Part 94. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 957. Brother Chao's name is Yu Chao. If he knew that Lu Chang'an thought he was a dish bully, he would definitely not be willing to admit it. Yu Chao considers himself a businessman and runs a vegetable company. The operators of the vegetable market are all shareholders of the vegetable company, and Yu Chao and his brothers hold shares. Yu Chao and others withdraw 40% of the vegetable company's annual profits as management fees. After deducting daily expenses, etc., the remaining profits are then distributed to the business owners. Is this reasonable? If there is a loss, then of course the operators of the vegetable market are responsible. If they don't sell vegetables well, can they lose money? Recently, Yu Chao has received rumors. Someone asked him to keep a low profile, saying that times have changed. If the matter goes online and public opinion ferments, a business like his can easily attract the attention of the higher UPS, and then everything will be done. Yu Chao disagrees. The wet market is too close to people's livelihood, but a bit far away from the internet. After all, most of those who buzz online all day long order takeout and cannot come to the wet market once or twice throughout the year. He does know that 5 years ago, no, it was the new year, that was 6 years ago, 20. In 2012, 41 people from the CAIBA gang in Mawangdui were arrested, and Yu Chao was also. He kept a low profile for a while, but he knew that the group deserved what they deserved. They were too arrogant and did not give others a way to survive. Yu Chao is very smart. Although his actions today are flamboyant, they are measured. He did not crush the woman's claw bones in public. This is the case for honest people. As long as she is given a little way to survive, she will not be able to survive. The situation is such that basically nothing will happen. Yu Chao walked for a while and threw the bag of chili peppers into the trash can. An old man who collected waste looked at it and hurried over to pick it up. He saw that it was quite good chili peppers, and he suddenly became happy. Seeing this scene, Yu Chao smiled, remembering the scene when he just left his hometown and came to Juncha. His hometown is full of endless mountains and remote areas. When Yu Chao came to a big city for the first time, he was stunned by the prosperity in front of him. At that time, he made up his mind to stay in Juncha even if he was picking up garbage. Now of course he can stay in Juncha, but he doesn't need to pick up garbage, and he also has his own business. Yu Chao continued to walk forward, looking at a copy shop passing by with satisfaction. The owner of the copy shop smiled at him and nodded across the aisle. In the eyes of many people, Yu Chao is still a capable person, especially his fellow villagers. At its peak, 80% of the copy shops across the country were opened by Yu Chao's fellow villagers, and even now this proportion is still very high. They all come from Zhuhua, a little-known county in southern Hunan. I mean, it's not well known on a national scale. After all, the country is so big, and many places have their own characteristics, scenic spots, origin advantages, etc. For people like Lu Chang'an, what impressed them most about antiquity was the smoked and cured products there, as well as their preference for adding mountain pepper oil when cooking. The local mountains are humid, making it difficult to preserve food, so there is a strong need for mountain pepper oil, a seasoning with a strong smell and strong fire, to drive away the cold and cover up the odor that is easy to breed in the food. When Yu Chao left Zhuhua, he was brought out by fellow villagers to prepare to work in the copy shop industry. At that time, poverty was everywhere in the mainland, and working outside was almost the first choice for young adults to make a living. Now, many of the businessmen in their 40s and 50s worked in the coast, learned a craft or accumulated capital, and then started their own business. These people who went out to work in the early years are completely different from the people who now work in factories in Kayangshikang and other places. These people who worked in the early years, after learning something and having some foundation or connections, often brought people out from their hometowns to work and develop together. The entire Juhua monopoly in domestic copy shops was developed by fellow villagers leading by fellow villagers. It is the simplest typical phenomenon of first the rich lead to the rich and then the rich later. Nowadays, many young people do not understand the importance of fellows. This is probably because those fellows have already taken root in other places and have brought out all they can. The young people who have grown up are either not willing to work so hard. Be diligent and down to earth and start working as an apprentice with odd jobs, or lose contact. Yu Chao was supposed to open a copy shop, but he had a wild mind and didn't want to sit in that small shop. He wanted to make quick money, big money, easy money. In short, now that Yu Chao is middle-aged, he has become a big brother and has brought people from his hometown to join the vegetable company. Some people are unwilling to go back to their hometown to spread Yu Chao's bad reputation, which makes more people feel that Yu Chao is in the county. There is a character. At present, Yu Chao is full of ambition and returned to his own territory humming the famous song of Hunan Huago Opera Lu Hai chopping wood. He bought the original farmers market building at a low price before the real estate market picked up. This place is now, how much is it worth? Enough for Yu Chao to become a billionaire after quitting the vegetable company. Many of the vegetable company's businesses are conducted under this 4-story farmers market building. For convenience, Yu Chao prohibits other nearby merchants and individuals from installing cameras, and only allows the vegetable company's security department to install surveillance cameras at key locations. Lu Chang'an followed Yu Chao and saw the signboard of Fufu Vegetable Company. The signboard was just a few words printed on a simple plastic sheet, and there were a few holes to see the light tubes inside. This was the only company in the whole building that was fully. It illustrates its strength, but this sign also reflects the pragmatic style of the company's management, which instills trust and enthusiasm for cooperation. There were several vans parked downstairs, and several vehicles that appeared to be vendors drove out of the cold storage, walking back and forth. Several people in security uniforms seemed to be doing part-time management inspections of entry and exit. Yu Chao walked from there, and everyone who met him called him Brother Chao respectfully. When he saw a lame vendor with a smiling face, Yu Chao spit out the toothpick in his mouth and said with a smile, "Cripple, you are old enough to enjoy the blessings. I heard that your son is going to take you to the capital to enjoy the blessings, otherwise, you should stop doing this and I will find someone to take over your stall." The lame vendor was horrified when he heard this, and quickly held up his hands and begged, "Brother Chao, Master Chao, please don't, my son is still in graduate school, how can he take me to enjoy my life? This stall is the lifeblood of my whole family." "Lifeblood?" Yu Chao laughed loudly and kicked the lame man's crotch. "Isn't your lifeblood here? Why, you took it to trade for a stall. I heard that your stall was taken over by Aunt Li. It turns out that are you selling your body in exchange for money?" The people around laughed, and the lame man sneered awkwardly, hunched over slightly, but did not dare to say anything. Yu Chao kicked the lame man again and went upstairs in a happy mood. He was so approachable and did not put on any airs because of his status. He still joked and got along with the people below. However, after Yu Chao left, the people from the vegetable company played tricks on the lame man again and plundered all the betel nut and cigarettes from him before letting him leave in his car. Lu Chang'an looked at this scene. The clothes of this vendor were ordinary and even a little shabby, but the betel nuts and cigarettes were good. It seemed that he had been prepared for it. If he didn't take these with him, he would not only tease him, but also make things difficult or even beat him. After finding Yu Chao's lair, Lu Chang'an walked to another intersection. Within a few minutes, Li Hongfang parked his car and walked over. He looked at Lu Chang'an with excitement. "Brother Lu, are we going to kill the whole family today?" "Then what are you excited about?" Li Hongfang's reaction was always so wrong. Lu Chang'an frowned. Killing people is very common, but getting excited when you hear about killing someone is obviously a bit psychopathic and belongs to a criminal personality. He should be electrocuted. One electric shock to correct it? Yang Yongxin's kind of electric shock was not a shock that made her numb. Considering that some people's brains are not normal, it is necessary to explain clearly. Although you appear to be cruel and tyrannical, you are actually just using violence to control violence and evil to control evil. In this era when innocence is difficult to distinguish, good and evil are difficult to distinguish, and sins are difficult to punish, isn't this a kind of fairness and harmony that people are eagerly waiting for? Justice. The person you want to kill must be a person who deserves to die. Justice must be served and sins must be punished. I am excited just because I see you burying your evil deeds in a clay pot, but what blooms is the light of righteousness in the world, Li Hongfang said with tears in her eyes. Lu Chang'an admitted that what Li Hongfang said made sense and was very correct, but when it came out of her mouth and with her sincere expression, Lu Chang'an always felt like being silenced by her. For a moment, he was speechless, and it turned out that he was alone. When you sincerely admire and revere a person who is worthy of your faith and adoration, you will express your feelings so directly and passionately. Send the crucian carp and these vegetables home for me, Lu Chang'an asked Li Hongfang to send the clay pots. Of course, she also had important things to do. Ah, Li Hongfang was a little surprised. Brother Lu killed someone today without taking her with him. From the time he was a little scared when he accompanied Lu Chang'an to kill someone and was pointed at a gun for the first time, now Li Hongfang wants to follow Lu Chang'an and watch the fun even if he is facing an army. Lu Chang'an grabbed her hand, hung the bag on her finger, and put the electric car key into her breast pocket. You go over there. There is an electric car standing at the entrance of the market. There is a lot of plastic tape on the front of the car, as if it was seriously injured. That is Shang Guandandan's electric car. You ride back and return it to her. She finds you riding her electric bike may give you a small boost of favorability because you know how to ride an electric bike. Li Hongfang nodded. There was nothing she could do if Brother Lu didn't take her with him today. She didn't have to worry that Brother Lu didn't trust her. It was also good to have a sense of presence in front of Shang Guandandan. The relationship between people, that is, we need to meet and communicate frequently to achieve further development. Regardless of ancient times or modern times, when everyone is in camp, don't they try their best to show up in front of their superiors? Although Shang Guandandan is Brother Liu's personal weapon, he is still the deputy sect leader, and his strength is as terrifying as a ghost. He has always been the target of Li Hongfang's fawning. This crucian carp, tell Zhou Shuling to fry it on both sides with tea oil, remove the remaining oil from the pan, stir-fry the ginger, garlic, pepper and perilla in the tea oil, pour it on top of the crucian carp, and then steam it for 10 minutes over high heat. Yes. If you don't understand anything, ask her to call me, and I won't go to have breakfast. I'll give you my share. Lu Chang'an carefully ordered the little crucian carp to do this. This was the purpose of his special rush, and he couldn't let Zhou Shuling play freely. Then after I finish these things, can I come to you again? Li Hongfang still likes to watch Lu Chang'an rub people. So Li Hongfang left her modified Mercedes-Benz G63 to Lu Chang'an and went to find Shang Guandandan's beloved electric car. Lu Chang'an opened the trunk. Although part of the trunk space was occupied due to modifications, it was still very large. There were 2 layers of clay pots placed close together, which was enough for Lu Chang'an. Kill them all. Thank you all for your generous tips. Every time I see my crotch-pulling updates, and readers just tip because they like the story, characters, writing style, and various merits, Xiahua is always pretty when you vote for the monthly vote. Dizzy, ashamed. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Can Ru Xiahua. Chapter 958. The fog dissipated a little, and the road surface was as wet as if it had rained. Lu Chang'an pressed his toes on the road surface, which was hard. A few more minivans from Fuyue Vegetable Company passed by, and Lu Chang'an drove to the farmer's market building and stopped close to the wall so as not to affect traffic, which fully demonstrated his excellent personal qualities. The security guards of the vegetable company who were about to go upstairs stopped and looked at this modified off-road vehicle, which was very rare in Juncha. Men all like cars and beautiful women. Some men will even choose cars when choosing between cars and beautiful women. They also often use car to describe women, such as car repair, driving a car, car headlights, original car, keys, spare keys, used cars and the like. There are even some people who use things like buying a car, renting a car, buying a car, maintaining a car, etc. as a metaphor for the various situations faced by women, which are very similar. The security guard's eyes are all focused on the modified G63 of Marissa, just like looking up at the elusive and charming beauty in the TV commercials of luxury shopping malls. At this time, the car door opened. The security guards were trying to see who was driving such a rare car, but first they saw a sharp horn sticking out. Very large horns. Like the big buffalo that was common in rural areas in the past, children often admired its hard and powerful horns. Unlike other places, the security guards of Fuya Vegetable Company are the real core team of the company. They were all brought by Yu Chao from his hometown. They have the bond of fellow villagers and the relationship of jointly training the business owners. Yu Chao wants to everything is done through them. Coming from Juhua, there is also the famous Zeke rice terraces. There is no way to mechanize farming. The buffalo is still an important production tool for local farmers. In the city with many high-rise buildings, suddenly seeing a buffalo horn makes the security guards nostalgic and can't take their eyes away. And looked at it. I originally thought that the person in the car was holding a horn or a bull's head, but it turned out that the person who came out of the car was a minotaur. The security guards were so shocked that their eyes almost dropped to the ground. This minotaur was extremely tall, mainly because the bull's head was extremely powerful and tall, and except for its horns, it was over 2 meters tall. What the hell is this? The security guards were surprised, but they didn't feel scared. Is there really some kind of monster appearing in broad daylight? It should be a big man wearing a cow head hood, the same style as the fish head hood that is very popular now, with fake muscles on his body. One of the security guards dreams of becoming an actor and knows a lot about these things. He also once worked as a group performer wearing various weird props and acted as a bit player. Because he provoked a girl in the group performance, he contacted Yu Chao after running away to avoid the limelight. Later, he found out that the girl did not call the police, and maybe even I don't know who inspired her. After the limelight passed, he found that the extras were not comfortable working under Brother Chao, so he stayed. People who had committed crimes were more likely to gain Chao's trust. He soon joined the security team and became one of the core team, and then only then did he realize that this group of people all had similar experiences, which made people admire their ability to recruit super talents. Isn't this just those things like dying of thirst? What does it mean to die of thirst? Don't you often see some children wearing weird clothes, like the people in Journey to the West and the List of Gods? Doing this kind of thing is called dying of thirst. The security guards were chatting when they saw the Minotaur walking straight towards them. The Minotaur is not only tall. He walked from the brightly lit corridor and entered the bottom of the building. His faint shadow seemed to be crawling on the ground, but it swallowed up the shadows of the security guards. His majestic body was full of oppression, like a demon. Overlooking the ants. "You, what are you doing?" The security guards already felt that something was wrong. They didn't know if it was a problem with the light. They always felt that the Minotaur was not wearing a hood. The connection between the bull's head and the body was very natural, as if it was really a bull's head growing on a human body. The Tauran only wore a pair of trousers. His naked upper body had muscles that were carved from granite, and his thigh-thick arms were like mutated and terrifying bat muscles. They all made people feel like he could tear people to pieces and rub them into crumbs at any time. The Tai Cheng Mud Plow Sutra records that the Buddha said, I see people in the world who are not filial to their parents, who do not do things to the ascetics and do not respect their elders, who are not afraid of the county magistrate's prohibitions, and who are not afraid of this world and the next. I will not be alarmed or afraid. If Cao man dies, he will not be afraid. Enter the mud plow and send people to where Yama is. The Tauren stood in front of the security guards and slowly read a scripture. The Minotaur didn't make any violent moves or use threatening words. He just recited scriptures, which made people feel more strange and not so scared. After all, the demons and monsters who can recite the Buddha's name are all good people on TV. "Brother, what's the matter with you?" the security guard asked boldly, taking the opportunity to look at the area around the Minotaur's neck and shoulders. "Pang will send people to where Yama is." The word Pang does not mean Pang, but refers to the Tauren. "His name is Pang." The Tauren pointed at himself. "It means you people have committed a crime. I will send you to hell to meet Yama. I am afraid that you have not read enough books, so I will explain that the mud plow is hell. You can pretend to be an expert only if you don't speak. The really scary maniacs are taciturn and will kill if they disagree with you." This is the life experience of security guards who usually live in society. But this Tauren was chanting and explaining scriptures, and no one asked him to introduce himself. How could he be a master with so many words? Anyway, after listening to what he said, even though he said he wanted to send everyone to see Yama, the security guards were no longer so afraid. "Brother, who are you scaring? Come on, send me to hell. I have never seen Lord Yama in my life. Now that I have seen him, I want to ask." This was not the first time that the Tauren saw such a request from an arrogant person, and he was very willing to satisfy the other person, so he reached out and took the speaker's head off his shoulders. "I want to ask." The head opened its mouth in the hands of the Tauren, and the voice suddenly stopped. The mouth moved up and down, as if it wanted to speak, but it was horrified to find that its state seemed to be wrong as never before. With the last corner of his eye, he saw that he seemed to be suspended in the air, but his body was gushing blood like a fountain, and he fell to the ground. When the other security guards saw this scene, they felt their ears buzzing, as if a thrilling BGM was playing. The figure of the Minotaur was like a mountain, making people feel that there was no escape. Their feet were weak and they were about to fall to the ground. Everyone screamed and ran towards the elevator. The Minotaur did not catch up immediately. Everyone ran into the elevator smoothly. Seeing that the elevator door was about to close, they looked at each other and let out a long breath. They found that everyone else had pale faces, trembling all over, and their pupils were so dilated that they were about to burst in their eyeballs. Same. Although everyone usually does things that include beatings, scolding and violence, who has ever seen a scene where a person's head is ripped off? There are very few scenes like this in movies, and they would be censored if they were too bloody. Now we all know that coding is actually necessary. It's so damn scary. Just like some action movies, coding is to protect the audience's beautiful fantasies and desires, and it's all for everyone's benefit. Why isn't the elevator moving? There was only the sound of sharp breathing in the elevator car. It took a while before someone noticed that they were pressing the floor button frantically, but the elevator made no movement at all. A finger as thick as a Harbin sausage got stuck in the crack of the elevator door, and then the elevator door was opened. The Tauren's majestic body squeezed into the elevator, and the horns on his head scraped against the top of the elevator car. The lights flickered on and off. The elevator goes up. After a while, when they reached the top floor, the Tauren walked out of the elevator and walked into the room with the general manager's sign. Yu Chao was humming opera and watching Huago opera films. This kind of film is not a serious comedy, but a custom-made film that he found from some small domestic action film teams. The actors and actresses in it are dressed in Huago opera costumes and combine traditional dramas such as Bang's Chop Woodcutter. Adapted. This hobby arises from the fact that when Yu Chao was a child in the ancient mountainous area, there was an extremely lack of recreational activities. Only during weddings, the bereaved family would invite a flower drum opera team to perform for a night, gathering the family and fellow villagers to accompany the deceased before he was buried. Last night, Yu Chao was deeply impressed by one of the flower drum opera actors. When he saw her changing clothes backstage, her half-undressed breasts and big white legs were exposed, which became the scene where Yu Chao released his desires in countless fantasies during his adolescence. When he became rich and powerful, he also thought about looking for the flower drum opera actress, but after all, it was difficult to find a trace. Even if he found it, he would probably be old and yellow. Can his youthful feelings allow him to ignore her layers of wrinkles and loose skin? Watching a movie, the Tauren walked in, and the horns knocked down a piece of the door, which made him regret a little. In fact, the horns don't need to be so big, they are just as powerful. What the hell? Yu Chao trembled with fear, quickly pulled up his pants, reached out and took out a 54 from the drawer next to him, and shot the Tauren. Unfortunately, even for well-trained professionals, the hit rate of hasty shooting is extremely low. Yu Chao fired several shots, but only one hit the horn because the muzzle was accidentally raised. When watching movies and TV shows, people often complain that both sides of the gunfight empty the magazine and miss the shot. In fact, that is a real scene. "Do you know why I want to kill you?" the Tauren asked. "No. You don't know." The magazine was empty, and Yu Chao had no time to change the magazine. The Minotaur had already walked in front of him, and Yu Chao was frightened. That's good. When I watch TV, there are always people who tell the other person why they are killing him before killing him, saying that they want the other person to understand. I am surprised that he died in an unclear and inexplicable way. Isn't it more interesting to be depressed? After saying that, the Tauren took off Yu Chao's head. Yu Chao's head rolled on the ground, rolling in a circle, his eyes staring blankly at the Minotaur, refusing to close his eyes. The Minotaur is Lu Chang'an. Since many people don't even know that the Zombie King is also Lu Chang'an, I would like to explain it here. Lu Chang'an cleaned up the Fuya Vegetable Company and found no fish that had slipped through the net. The company was not without serious employees, but those who were responsible for communicating with the public had not come to work at this time. He put the entire founders and core team of Fuya Vegetable Company into clay pots. After cleaning the outside of the clay pots, he put them into snakeskin bags. The snakeskin bags were also cleaned in another bathroom, packed in plastic bags, and then put in a layer of snakeskin bags before being put back in the car. It is necessary to do this. If there is blood inside the car, it is basically impossible to completely remove it. DNA will always be detected. This is the ironclad evidence in many cases. Professor Lu Jianxi has been in the biological research industry for many years and will not. I don't even understand this common sense. Li Hongfang is very easy to use, and he wants to use it for a long time, and doesn't want her to get into trouble. After finishing these things, Lu Chang'an took off his pants and shoes and packed them, wrapped the shirt and jacket he had taken off around his waist, and drove the car back to the community. He parked close to the wall to avoid the rich vegetables. Company monitoring. As for the clues, there will be more or less traces left, but it's nothing. Lu Chang'an drove the car around the Xiangjiang River, disposed of the clay pots as usual, and then hurried back home. After all, he did not have a certain status or importance. Are not qualified to be buried around the sycamore trees in the community. What he was most worried about at this time was that Zhou Shuling did not handle the crucian carp according to his method. This little mother always likes to invent various new dishes. Who knows how she will mess with Lu Chang'an's beloved little crucian carp. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 959. Lu Chang'an can be sure that if Zhou Shuling did not cook according to Lu Chang'an's method and changed it to a method that she thought was feasible, when it was cooked, she would think that it was a new dish she invented. And he would bring it to Lu Chang'an for him to taste, hoping to get his praise. She often does this, but the number of times she gets praise is as few as the times Zhou Dongdong gets praise for his progress in exams. So far, the only dish that she has improved and won Lu Chang'an's approval is the cold tangled hoof flour, which is on the menu, which makes Zhou Shuling think that she is on an equal footing with Zhou Dongdong in this regard. In the past, Zhou Dongdong accidentally invented the Zhou Dongdong brand. Here comes the chicken legs. In fact, the current sales volume of this cold tangle flour in the restaurant is only higher than that of the lard omelette ordered à la carte as part of the set meal. The lard omelette costs about 2 or 3 yuan in the set meal, and it costs 5 yuan if ordered individually, so most people order the set meal with lard omelette. Only those who really like omelette will add 1 or 2. It's not that Zhou Shuling's cold tuna is not delicious, but the quantity is small and the price is high. It uses fresh pig's feet instead of frozen products. In addition, it takes time to make, so the cost cannot be reduced. Fortunately, Zhou Shuling did not have any delusions about being on par with Zhou Dongdong brand chicken drumsticks, which sold first in the store, otherwise she would have been troubled. My little mother is the kind of woman who is easily satisfied both mentally and physically. Physiologically, it means that she can eat a lot, but it doesn't matter if she eats less, which means she is easily satisfied. People nowadays tend to think wrongly. A serious person should be careful when speaking, or explain a sentence or two to avoid causing misunderstandings and affecting the image of a serious person. Lu Chang'an paid special attention to this. He found that women nowadays are relatively dirty, among them En Nuan and Li Hongfang are the representatives. En Nuan likes to tell dirty jokes, but Li Hongfang is a little more extreme. Lu Chang'an's normal behavior or words can be twisted by her to make up lewd secrets and the like. Lu Chang'an parked the car in the open space next to the grape trellis. As soon as he got out of the car, the old man Qian came over with a bundle of plastic wrap in his hand. He was just sizing up this big jeep. The older generation likes to call off-road vehicles a jeep, not to mention such a big and square car. It should be called a jeep. Originally he was just taking a look, but when he found out that Lu Chang'an was driving, old man Qian came over and patted the car body. He raised his legs and tried to stand on the pedals, but gave up after a little trouble. Girls nowadays like short, flat sports cars, not jeeps. Mr. Qian said knowingly that Lu Chang'an's car was nothing. You have to drive that kind of car to attract girls. I drive a donkey cart, and girls like it. Lu Chang'an said very self-awarely, when you were young, did you really want to have a 28-inch big bumper so you could deceive girls? He, I am my 21st, then Dagang. At that time, I bought all 4 major items, all by myself. Old man Qian felt nostalgic with some pride, and patted the car again. That scenery is no worse than this big thing like you. Lu Chang'an also remembered it for a moment. The so-called Dabang is the name given to a bicycle made after the founding of the People's Republic of China. Means that the wheel has 28 inches, and Dabang means that there is a thick black beam on the bicycle. Many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s have the experience of riding long distances with their parents on this beam. Many people still remember that when they were children, they did not sit on the big bar, but sat in the back, so their father stepped on the pedal, raised his other foot back to get on the car, and swept himself off. As for the scratches on the steel bars on the instep tires, it is even more common, but the feeling at the time will indeed be very painful. Life at that time was like riding a bicycle, everything was slow. Now the 10 or 20 years have passed by like a speeding railway. In the past, we lived 20 years, and it felt so long. Days, Lu Chang'an said with emotion. The long term mentioned here refers to a long life, not from the perspective of a super life form. Old man Qian nodded involuntarily. Why? However, life in this community is still slow and detailed. Why is this? What is the young man next to me being pretentious about, and why do I involuntarily agree with him? Lu Chang'an and Old Man Qian stood together and sighed. Old Man Qian suddenly turned around and said, "Who is following you?" I'm going to take pictures of trees. By the way, your dandan took Zhou Dongdong to climb the wall. There. Old Man Qian knew very well that the only one who could take care of dandan was Lu Chang'an. Dandan was usually very lovable and protected by all the old men and ladies in the community. After losing money repeatedly, Old Man Qian wanted to say some harsh words to Dandan. They all gave up in fear under the eyes of their poker friends. After all, they had accumulated a lot of hatred in their hearts and wanted to take the opportunity to plot against Dandan. Lu Chang'an walked towards the direction pointed by Old Man Qian, and sure enough he saw Shangguan Dandan and Zhou Dongdong sitting on the wall. There is also a sheep, which is also jumping on the wall. One moment it wants to kick the unstable bricks off the wall, and the other moment it shakes its head and bites the leaves of the mulberry tree. Lu Chang'an felt dizzy. The three creatures gathered together in front of him were not surprising at all. They were obviously three different species, but it made people feel that the phrase "birds of a feather flock together" suited them very well. There is also a dog under the wall, which seems to be more humane and more compliant than the three on the wall. "What are you doing?" Lu Chang'an often asked Zhou Dongdong, "What are you doing?" But now it has escalated. Birds, children, sheep, and dogs all turned to look at Lu Chang'an. "Brother Chang'an, do you want to come up and eat mulberries with us?" Sister Dandan said that this mulberry tree has not been treated with pesticides and can be eaten directly. Zhou Dongdong enthusiastically invited Lu Chang'an to join him and put some wet and sticky mulberries. "Put it in your pocket." Lu Chang'an took 3 steps back, showing a firm refusal. He pointed at Lu Sin, who was holding Zhou Dongdong's school bag in his mouth. "Zhou Dongdong, do you know what time it is now? You haven't gone to school yet. Today is Sunday, so we don't have to go to school." Zhou Dongdong wiped the mulberry particles from the corner of his mouth and said happily, "I don't know why, but I always feel that this week's holiday seems to be longer than before." "Baa, Baa, Baa," Zhu Huntang shouted 3 times in response to Zhou Dongdong. No one in the Baa universe would want to go to school. Currently, in terms of not wanting to go to school, the rankings here are Shangguan Dandan, Zhu Huntang, and Zhou Dongdong. Shangguan Dandan doesn't have to study at all, which is what Zhu Huntang envies the most. Zhu Huntang is also far ahead in skipping classes and asking for leave. Zhou Dongdong is just a hard-working primary school student with little freedom and ranks at the bottom. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang. It still had a plastic bag on its butt today. It was obvious that those customized fairy sheep armors were not that easy to make. But a sheep climbed onto the wall. This is a city, not a remote scenic spot like Nanshan Ranch. Can't we keep a low profile? Lu Chang'an reached out and took Zhou Dongdong off the wall and put it on the ground. He put the skull bag in Lucine's mouth on her back. Then he took out his mobile phone and showed her what day it was today. "Do you see clearly? Today is Monday. Go to school quickly with Lu Sin." Today is Monday, Zhou Dongdong was shocked. Is it because he dreamed last night that today was still Sunday, so he remembered it wrong? "You're already late. Walk slowly on the road." Lu Chang'an shook his head. Zhou Shuling didn't know what she was doing. She didn't even notice that Zhou Dongdong didn't go to school. As for Shangguan Dandan, the godmother, she didn't expect her to remind Zhou Dongdong to go to school. Ever since she just saw Lu Chang'an, she took a mulberry leaf in front of her face without saying a word, as if Lu Chang'an would act as if she doesn't exist. Zhou Dongdong touched Lucine's dog's head and went to school together. The remaining 2 were still on the wall. Lu Chang'an just wanted to smash the wall with a kick. "Godmother, the bad old man looks bad." You should threaten him quickly, lest he overestimate his capabilities and attack us first, so that we can be beaten later. Zhu Huntang stretched out his two sheep's hooves and hugged a bush. The mulberry branch was planned to be swung away from the wall if Lu Chang'an made any movement, and then he would roll to the ground nimbly, and then run away. Shang Guandun uncovered his face and eyes with mulberry leaves, so he was immune to Lu Chang'an's eyes, and said in a calm tone, Xiao Tang was a little confused about the fact that he could transform into a sheep, so he came here early in the morning to talk to me. After discussing it, I forgot about the fact that Dong Dong still has to go to school. Lu Chang'an snorted, but he didn't really knock down the entire wall in order to drive them off the wall. After all, this was public property. People should never destroy public property and facilities just to vent their personal emotions. If you want to smash it, just smash it in your own home. After smashing it, you have to buy it. It can also promote internal circulation, demand and economic development, as long as it is not thrown out of the window. High-altitude throwing objects are worse than ordinary smashing of public property and endanger public safety. Zhu Huntang, there is a class this afternoon, don't forget it. Like Zhou Dongdong. I will go to Professor Lu later and ask if she is willing to be your cultural teacher. Lu Chang'an gave a warning and left. For Zhu Huntang, there is no need to remind her again and again. If she doesn't want to go to school, it's useless to say 1,000 words to her. Only violence can make her surrender. The typical toast is to give her a fine drink instead of a meal. Thinking of Zhou Dongdong's stocky back as he led the dog to school, Lu Chang'an suddenly felt a sense of sad expectation. In the future, it would be enough for Lu Changqian to be as obedient as Zhou Dongdong. He turned back and took a deep look at Zhu Huntang, who was still standing on the wall, meeting his eyes and saying "Baa" arrogantly. When he got home, Lu Chang'an knew why Zhou Shuling didn't care about Zhou Dongdong forgetting to go to school. She was in the kitchen exchanging cooking skills with Li Hongfang. Zhou Shuling and Shang Guandandan exchanged makeup techniques, which was like novices pecking each other. The exchange of cooking skills with Li Hongfang cannot be said to be a rivalry between rookies. Zhou Shuling cannot compare with Lu Chang'an in this aspect, but she still has an advantage in front of Li Hongfang. Li Hongfang is the only rookie in the kitchen. During this period, Zhou Shuling often spent time with Li Hongfang, and the two became very familiar with each other. Li Hongfang taught Zhou Shuling many things. Now that Li Hongfang wanted to ask her about cooking skills, Zhou Shuling was naturally happy to teach her everything. Chang'an said that this small crucian carp should be fried in tea. I think lard is also acceptable. In fact, it is okay not to fry it. If you think about it, the characteristic of small crucian carp is that it is tender and fresh, and it will be a little crispier after frying. It feels like that, but that delicious taste will probably be difficult to retain. Lu Chang'an walked to the door of the kitchen, where Zhou Shuling was giving her high opinions. Li Hongfang looked like she was learning with humility, nodding her head from time to express her agreement. He didn't want to disturb them. Zhou Shuling wears a down jacket on her upper body, and only wears a pair of tight-fitting warm pants underneath, which are tight and have the effect of yoga pants. Women with plump lower limbs wearing yoga pants always attract attention when they appear in the gym or even on the street. The little woman always exudes an extraordinarily warm atmosphere in winter, and is so soft that it makes people want to hold her in their arms all the time as a source of heat. Li Hongfang was wearing brown linen clothes and trousers that were very loose. She looked like she was at the front desk in a high-end office building where it was like spring all year round. She was holding a cup of coffee and looking at a magazine, or she could do secret skills that could only be done in the boss's office. They may not be at the level of national beauty, but the women are full of charm, which is pleasing to the eye. But they had to torment the little crucian carp that Lu Chang'an had bought after betraying his appearance. Do you want to put it directly into the bowl, sprinkle some dried chili ash, black beans, or something, and then put it directly into the steamer? Lu Chang'an interrupted Zhou Shuling's free play. Zhou Shuling was stunned for a moment, and suddenly she lost the confidence she had just now. It was not that she was not confident in her own ideas, but Lu Chang'an always liked to use his hands and feet. As long as she insisted on her own ideas, he would knock people on the head or arrest her. Holding someone's arm and removing them from the kitchen or something like that. But he still nodded. Your method is only suitable for steaming cured meat. If you don't fry this small crucian carp before putting it in the steamer, the water vapor will condense in the bowl, and the crucian carp meat will be loose and soft, and it can't be picked up with chopsticks. Lu Chang'an, he waved his hands and said, both of you, go out. Li Hongfang felt that he had suffered an unreasonable disaster. He should have had the opportunity to do something in the kitchen. The kitchen was not a big place, and it was normal for everyone to bump into each other. It was a rare opportunity to feel the beautiful body of the world. Normally, Zhou Shuling must have made full use of such an opportunity. With Zhou Shuling's character, she is relatively reserved and restrained, and it is unlikely that she would take the initiative to touch Lu Chang'an in other places, so she would give full play to her traditional little lady advantages and take the kitchen into her hands. Become her home court. Zhou Shuling's dress today proves Li Hongfang's analysis. On the surface, she is wearing a heavy down jacket, but the down jacket is not a soft and close-fitting material. As long as she bends over and raises the back hem, her hip line is exposed to seduce Lu Chang'an. Women must be so cautious. Li Hongfang affirmed what Zhou Shuling had done and planned to apply what she learned if she had the opportunity. Have you eaten? Zhou Shuling knew that Lu Chang'an was right, so she changed the subject. Why don't you watch some TV first, and I'll make you a bowl of noodles, and you can get the little crucian carp. That's okay. Lu Chang'an mainly wanted to stop Zhou Shuling from steaming small crucian carp indiscriminately. If she didn't let her do what she wanted, Lu Chang'an felt relieved. After walking to the electric heating table and sitting down, Li Hongfang came over and asked eagerly. Brother Lu, is the matter done? Sigh, now the society is stable and people live and work in peace and contentment. As long as they work hard, their lives can always be good. But there are always some scumbags who want to destroy the great situation of building a harmonious society and set up obstacles and add resistance to the overall goal of moving towards a moderately prosperous society in an all-round way. Li Hongfang followed the momentum of his words and patted Lu Chang'an's strong arm muscles. Men like to touch women, so why don't women like to touch men? Faced with a man like Brother Lu, everyone should understand that his hands get wet occasionally. Lu Chang'an glanced at Li Hongfang. She was really talented. If the career of tomb robbing, which had no future, had not restricted and affected her development, and she had followed the institutional path seriously, maybe Lu Chang'an would be able to watch it on TV in a few years. She spoke. It's not just that she said such words to give Lu Chang'an such positive recognition, but that she takes into consideration all aspects of her qualities. Of course, because of her past work, Li Hongfang can no longer follow the institutional path. She has no concept of following rules at all. When she gets a little angry, she might dig up the ancestral graves of her boss or colleagues, and the unit will send her to distribute benefits. You may hold a box and let people draw cards, give bathing center coupons to male colleagues, and give women's health club recharge cards to female colleagues. Seeing that Lu Chang'an did not object to his words, Li Hongfang knew that Brother Lu had gone to do justice for God today, and he was still a scumbag. In fact, we are now vigorously advocating green environmental protection industries and paying attention to waste utilization. I heard that the corpse business in India is very prosperous. Li Hongfang lowered his voice again. Knowing the elegant meaning of a stringed song is such an elegant and sophisticated sentence. Lu Chang'an really doesn't want to use it on Li Hongfang. As soon as her heart-shaped butt popped up, Lu Chang'an knew what Ivory was about to spit out of her mouth. Sure enough, in the entire Zhou Fenglai sword sect, he was the only normal person. It was really important for the sect to be led by a normal person to grasp the general direction and prevent the disciples from going astray. They have a sheep strengthening medicine made from bone meal, which is extremely popular in Europe and the United States. Many European and American sellers customize large quantities and actively participate in the corpse business. There are also specimen preparation, medical research, etc. You can buy a corpse from hundreds to millions of dollars, Li Hongfang said with emotion. Compared with them, Li Hongfang's career seems much more acceptable. Millions of dollars, Lu Chang'an certainly knows about this kind of business. It can be said that it has been around since ancient times. However, in addition to the progress of civilization, some dark and anti-human things have also been developed in modern times. Well, some deceased persons with typical diseases are of great research significance. Pathological information can be studied from the corpses to promote the development of drugs or treatments. Such corpses are very valuable, and there are also the corpses of some celebrities, Li Hongfang explained. By the way, after a moment, I learned this because when we were working, we found that we were just looking for treasures, but some people would not let go of the graves of lonely ghosts, and would take away the bones they found. Lu Chang'an also saw him. Once he was buried well, but someone dug him out. He was too lazy to move. When others saw that his face was complete and fresh, and his muscles were elastic, as if he were a stranger, and that he was a white-faced scholar from Haloxylon Amodendron, they sold him. He paid a high price and got married to a dead girl from a wealthy family. These miraculous experiences have been countless in his long life, so they are no longer strange. Li Hongfang would not be able to remember them if he didn't talk about them. I think what you mean is, don't rub people into clay pots in the future, but sell the corpses. Lu Chang'an saw her twisting and turning, but he didn't tell her what she was thinking, so he directly exposed her thoughts and stretched out his hand. He grabbed her cheek and said, "If you want to do business seriously, why can't you come up with a single good idea? You are very clever in doing evil things." Li Hongfang didn't feel pain, but felt a little regretful. "Actually, I have some connections in India, but I haven't used them for a long time. These connections have to be used from time to time. Everyone gets some benefits so that we can maintain them with trust. Making money is a trivial matter." What she said makes sense. Lu Chang'an has connections all over the world, but he hasn't used them for too long. Even some people who are more particular have passed down from generation to generation. We are the guardians of XXX's wealth. In the future, everything will be restored to its original state. Lord and other oaths, but he himself did not contact him, and no one recognizes these things anymore. Li Hongfang also has connections in India, which doesn't surprise Lu Chang'an. If she didn't have these magical powers, how could a richest man like Li Jiama go to such trouble to find her to host I Want to Dig the Sea in action like Hanyu No. 2 tomb so that I can die in it? You still want to maintain these connections? Are you planning to return to your old career in the future? That's not true. My current career is to run the rice noodle shop. Well, Li Hongfang observed the words and expressions and understood the owner's intentions. That's pretty much it. Lu Chang'an didn't bother to pursue the idea that she actually wanted to do that kind of business with Indians. Judging from Lu Chang'an's personal experience, doing business with Indians is not a pleasant thing. They basically do not follow any rules or integrity, try hard to lower prices, break contracts at any time, and spend a lot of time pretending to negotiate business, maybe just to ask for gifts. When doing business with them, you don't feel at ease even after receiving a deposit, unless you pay the money and deliver the goods. You also have to beware of the after-sales and finicky claims they require. If you don't satisfy them, they will claim that you don't want to do business with their Indians in the future. By the way, take a look at the waiter uniforms in our store. Li Hongfang stood up and brought over his large black crocodile leather bag, took out a tablet computer and showed the design to Lu Chang'an. I open a rice noodle shop, not a bathing center. Li Hongfang quickly moved her fingers and displayed another uniform design. This is more or less the same. Lu Chang'an suspected that the one she wanted him to choose was the one she wanted him to choose. Seeing that he was unwilling, he took out the second set of serious uniforms. Zhou Shuling made some noodles and brought them over. Crucian carp noodles. Zhou Shuling introduced her work with a little pride. If she was not allowed to steam the small Crucian carp according to her own method, she would take two out for him to eat. Anyway, she was going to make something fresh. After saying that, she put down the bowl and sat down next to Li Hongfang. The two people's hip lines bumped into each other, and it actually felt like two rubber balls hitting each other and bouncing away. Lu Chang'an took a bite of the noodles, nodded politely, and started eating. He is good at appreciating food, but he is not a picky gourmet. This bowl of noodles also fully demonstrates Zhou Shuling's confidence in her craftsmanship. Isn't she trying to torture him, Lu Chang'an, by making so many noodles if they are not delicious? My little mother doesn't have such bad intentions. Shang Guandandan would do this. The Queen Mother seemed to sense that others were saying bad things about her, so she opened the door in time and walked in, with the swaggering sheep following behind her. The sheep's limbs took off at the same time and landed at the same time. It bounced over one after another. It raised its two forelimbs and lay next to the electric heating table. It came over to see what Lu Chang'an was eating with a wash basin in his hand. Seeing the deputy doormaster come in, Li Hongfang quickly stood up to say hello. Shang Guandandan pressed his hands with dignity, indicating that Li Hongfang did not need to be polite. Hey, Dandan, I think I've seen this sheep in Nanshan Ranch, Zhou Shuling said with a nostalgic look. This was her first trip in her life. Although the place she went to was not far away and the time she stayed there was not long, it was not a high-end tourist attraction that could be posted on various show-off apps. But the people accompanying her are all people she likes. This kind of trip makes her happy all the way. What's more, Lu Chang'an said that he would take her and Dong Dong Dandan to many places to play, and Zhou Shuling was full of expectations. As for Shang Guandandan suddenly bringing a sheep into the house, Zhou Shuling didn't think it was strange. Zhou Dongdong also dug up a dead pullet and brought it home. A live sheep was much more normal than a dead chicken. Hey, Zhu Huntang didn't want to scare Zhou Shuling, so he called out normally to say hello to her. Then he wandered around the room, inspected Lu Chang'an's home from a sheep's perspective, ran to his bedroom, and jumped on his bed. Run back a few times. It's the one from Nanshan Ranch. It is Xiaotang's pet and has the supreme status. Xiaotang said to her men that seeing this sheep is like seeing the eldest lady in person. Everything the sheep enjoys, the standards and treatment are similar to hers. Shang Guan as Dandan spoke, he brought a small bowl over and pointed at a small Crucian carp in Lu Chang'an's bowl. Lu Chang'an took one and gave her some noodles. Shang Guan Dandan nodded with satisfaction. The small Crucian carp he gave her was the largest. It was a small Crucian carp boiled directly. The skin was torn and the meat was a bit rotten. It didn't look very good. Shang Guandandan raised his hand and touched Lu Chang'an's head, then sat next to him and started eating. I heard that rich people in the West passed away and left their inheritance to their pets. Li Hongfang didn't think there was anything wrong with Zhu Huntang's behavior. Miss Susan's sheep should be more stylish than those rich people's pets. For example, a custom-made sheep private jets, like 747 or a 380, transform the cabin into a large lawn, big enough for lambs to run and play on it. The aircraft is painted with pictures of countless sheep, which creates an eye-polluting effect, which is very cool. Li Hongfang, if you're fine, just leave. Lu Chang'an couldn't bear it anymore. Just like he usually liked to persuade Zhou Dongdong to do things that would get him beaten, but if others thought Zhou Dongdong was a stupid kid and teased and pranked her, Lu Chang'an couldn't accept it. Li Hongfang shut up. But the sheep raised its head, showing a thoughtful expression, and then the sheep's tail swayed, making the plastic bag wrapping its butt ring. It didn't even bleed, and ran out of the door. Alas, Lu Chang'an knew that it was too late for him to shut up Li Hongfang. When Li Hongfang opened his mouth and got involved, he should have thrown Li Hongfang off the balcony. He didn't do this, not because he didn't expect it, but because he thought calling Li Hongfang to help her so early in the morning shouldn't be so rude and irritable to her. After all, he was a particular person. Then there is no way. If you pay attention to people, there will always be a lot of troubles. You should think about how to persuade Lu Yuwang to become Zhu Huntang's teacher later. As a well-liked and famous professor, he may not be willing to. He was taught by a naughty student like Zhu Huntang. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 960. After Lu Chang'an finished eating, Li Hongfang drove Zhou Shuling to finalize the final style of the store's uniforms. He wanted to escort Zhu Huntang first, and Shang Guandandan followed him. Shang Guandandan is not very interested in leaving the community and going to places too far away, unless there are activities such as free gifts. Dongdong's mother is too busy. Regarding the vending machine, Shang Guandandan plans to learn about it by herself first. Her information usually comes from her own circle of friends, and the people she consults are usually old men and women in the community. The two of them walked past the grape trellis and saw old man Jian wrapping a crooked-necked willow tree in plastic wrap and taking pictures of the tree to keep it healthy. Xiao Jian, what are you doing? There are always people doing strange things in the community. What are you doing has become a common greeting. Shang Guan walked to the crooked-neck willow tree and looked at Jian curiously. Old man. I found that this willow tree is particularly unique. Others tend to lean to the south, but it leans to the north. Maybe it's because it has spirituality. I use it to exercise and get twice the result with half the effort, old man Jian said with a straight face. His stern face was not to show anger, but to make himself look more powerful. He shouted and shouted with his palms, which might make Dandan feel a little scared. He should not blatantly humiliate old man Jian when playing cards in the future. Card skills. Although he really likes playing cards with Shang Guandandan and even wants to exclude Lu Chang'an from participating in the community's chess and card activities, old man Jian has discovered that Shang Guandandan's card-playing skills are not as good as Lu Chang'an's, and his yin and yang eccentricity or the level of a planner is even higher. And nothing less. I also recently discovered a new way to exercise, which is said to be very effective. Shang Guandandan took out his mobile phone in preparation and showed old man Jian a video she had saved. In the video, an old man is swinging, but others are sitting on the swing seat with their buttocks. The old man puts the rope around his neck. A wider cowhide mat is added where the rope touches the neck to prevent strangulation and suicide. Old man Jian watched and found it interesting. At his age, he was very interested in various health and fitness activities. However, after listening to the old man introducing the benefits of this fitness method in the video, old man Jian looked at Shang Guandandan suspiciously. Is it because I snitched on you and Zhou Dongdong climbing the wall this morning, and you want to take revenge on me? There must be something wrong with this fitness method. Old man Jian was keenly aware of the element. I didn't. But if you insist on thinking so, I can't help it. I want to organize everyone to come to exercise like this. I will occupy all the trees suitable for hanging myself and won't let you play together, Shang Guandandan regretfully said. He said, reaching out to touch the thermos pot, but found nothing. She didn't bring a thermos flask with her today because she went out for a stroll and might bring a vending machine or something like that when she came back. It was not very convenient to hold a thermos flask. The Queen Mother always made decisions before acting, and she was a person with plans. This crooked-necked willow tree has been taken over by me, old man Jian pointed to his plastic wrap and said, feeling a little proud. Fortunately, he had the foresight to avoid falling into the scheme of this insidious egg. Well, when our collective tree hanging exercise group is established, you can be counted as one, Shang Guandandan said reluctantly. Old man Jian also nodded with a straight face. Really, what kind of community group activities would it be like if there were no veteran and prominent figures like Lao Jian to participate? Seeing Shang Guandandan striding out of the community, old man Jian hesitated for a moment, feeling something was wrong. He wanted to ask Lu Chang'an if, no matter what he said, he was actually part of Shang Guandandan's plan, but he felt that it was wrong to ask. Feeling embarrassed, he continued to pat the tree without saying a word. Lu Chang'an smiled. Shang Guandandan was increasingly becoming a central figure in the social circle of the community. She was doing well and she was worthy of being the Queen Mother. When it comes to the word hustle, it is more derogatory than praise. Even if someone is said to be doing well, there is still some dissatisfaction, or you feel that the other person only uses means, rather than true ability and hard power. For example, you can say that many people in the Writers' Association are doing well, but few people say that academicians of the Academy of Sciences are doing well. In most fields, some people do well, some rely on hard power, and a small number of people not only have high emotional intelligence, are well-rounded, are at home in the entire field, but also have a super high professional level. This is true even when playing games. In the professional League of Legends, some people are just bastards. Not only do they bastardize themselves, but they also rule a bastard ecology. They are unparalleled in the dominant domestic league, and they are even better in foreign wars. Just show your true colors. Only after this kind of people faded out of the game did the domestic League of Legends professional league get better. Maybe mixing is also a kind of ability, I won't discuss it. Lu Chang'an felt that he was also a gangster, with outstanding abilities but not much work, let alone serious work. This is very similar to Zhu Huntang. It's just a similarity, not a direct lineage. It's definitely not Lu Chang'an's inheritance, it's her own desire to be a bastard. In fact, to explain it in today's terms, some people are gangsters not because they are greasy gangsters, but because they just want to stay in their comfort zone and do not make progress, work hard, or suffer. After Lu Chang'an thought about life for a while, he had already reached the towering Bailong Center. In the lives of Zhu Fenglai Jianmen disciples and outsiders, this is the second core gathering point after the old community. Everyone frequently haunted here. The mall had just opened, and the man in a stiff heavy coat opened the door. Lu Chang'an said thank you, stepped in with half a foot, and then stepped back. Various signs and warnings are often posted on the entrance doors of various public places, such as no smoking, disgracefully dressed people are not allowed to enter, betel nut is not allowed, guide dogs are allowed to enter, pets are not allowed. Come in and so on. Lu Chang'an saw a sign posted on the door. The puppy representing pets was marked with N times, but the lamb was marked with a square root. What does this mean? Lu Chang'an is well informed and has never seen this kind of logo on various occasions at home and abroad. Even the sheep brothel doesn't have such a sign. This is our latest regulation. Pets are not allowed to enter, but if the pet is a lamb, goat, sheep, antelope, alpaca, etc., they can enter. The door greeter explained politely. Can you roast a whole lamb? Menying was obviously very skilled in business and said after a little surprise, the food center in the shopping mall provides a variety of catering items. Among them, the Quanja brand offers roasted whole lamb. You need to make an appointment in advance. You can go there if necessary. For consultation, enter the door, turn left, and walk forward 200 meters and you will be there. Can the eland come in? Menying smiled slightly and nodded. He didn't know that the African eland can weigh 1 ton and is a giant beast taller than a buffalo. What does that have to do with him? The boss is so willful anyway. Such a conversation was meaningless. Lu Chang'an did not welcome the size of the African eland, and went directly to find the real owner. When he got out of the elevator, Lu Chang'an saw the alpaca Long Aotian playing with the orange cat Saint and Zhu Huntang's Rottweiler, the fourth high-ranking Templar. Zhu Huntang must have turned into a sheep and played with them. Jin Xiaomei told Lu Chang'an that Zhu Huntang was creating in the studio, and gave a serious warning that there was no major event of the end of the world and not to disturb her creation, lest her inspiration run away and cause heavy losses. She also has a studio. The top 4 floors of Beilong Center Building 1 are far smaller in area than the bottom area including the podium, but they are still large enough that even regular visitors like Lu Chang'an have not visited them all. The studio is next to elevator number 3. You usually go to the pyramid-shaped escalator on the top floor. The planned area is less than 200 square meters. Later, the third lady merged the reading room and the studio, but she may not go there once a month. So you may not have paid attention to that side. Jin Xiaomei led Lu Chang'an. I mean, does she have the talent for painting? Lu Chang'an asked hopefully. How can people be so different? They say that when God closes the door for you, he may open a window for you, of course. As for climbing out of the window and discovering that this is the top floor of the Beilong Center, that is another matter. According to the facts that Lu Chang'an has seen with his own eyes, many lunatics, mentally ill people, and mentally retarded people have the talent for painting. Yes, the third lady is versatile. Jin Xiaomei smiled. Versatile is a relatively weak adjective. Anyway, he was not asking whether the third lady has achieved any achievements in talent, won any awards, or created any outstanding works. Work. Lu Chang'an had never paid attention to or understood Zhu Huntang's talents. Once, when Su Mei or Su Nangxiu met him and Zhu Huntang on campus, she asked Zhu Huntang what he would order. Zhu Huntang's answer at that time was, taking selfies and holding thighs. Finally, he pushed Lu Chang'an's thigh towards Su Nangxiu, and ran away when it couldn't be pushed anymore. So Lu Chang'an, led by Jin Xiaomei, walked into Zhu Huntang's studio. A house is more than 100 square meters, which doesn't feel very big. When there are no pillars and partitions in the empty center, it feels very empty. With the combined reading room, it looks even bigger. The studio is more like a painting collection room than a painting studio. There are many portraits in the room, and the characters in the portraits are all Zhu Huntang himself. As soon as you walk in, you will see a huge portrait in the center, in the style of Tang Dynasty painting. The background landscape is Li Sixun's brushwork, which can almost be fake. In the picture, Zhu Huntang is wearing loose and elegant Tang Dynasty clothes, with chariots and horses behind him, and he is patrolling with Wu Zetian. Similar. Is this a photo? Lu Chang'an took a look and felt that it was not a photo. After looking closely, he realized that it was a painting. It turns out to be a hyper-realistic oil painting. The more famous one in this style is Leng Jun. Leng Jun's market has always been good because his works can always directly amaze viewers, especially the public, and are also very popular in the market. This kind of hyper-realistic oil painting is quite controversial in the art critic circle. Many people think that no matter how realistic the painting is, how can it be captured with a large SLR camera with hundreds of millions of pixels? Zhu Huntang obviously didn't care about these arguments. She thought it looked good, so she asked someone to draw one and put it here. The entire studio is full of various paintings with different styles, with Zhu Huntang as the theme character. In fact, her photos can be seen everywhere on these floors, but Lu Chang'an didn't expect that she was so narcissistic that she opened such a studio. Lu Chang'an soon discovered a tormenting place. Zhu Huntang created an effect in the entire studio and the placement of works. Lu Chang'an stood in the center of the studio and would be watched by Zhu Huntang from all directions and angles. He quickly moved his steps and found that he still had the same feeling, but the angles from which his eyes looked at him became weirder. Lu Chang'an seemed to know the real reason why Zhu Huntang might not come once a month. She couldn't stand it, right? Go and get busy, Lu Chang'an said to Jin Xiaomei when he saw Zhu Huntang half lying on the table writing and drawing, concentrating so much that he didn't notice him visiting. He walked to Zhu Huntang and frowned immediately. What is this ham sausage with 2 chicken wings stuck on it? Lu Chang'an felt that he had been tainted by the wisdom of Shang Guandandan and others, and he naively and foolishly thought that Zhu Huntang might have a talent for painting. This painting is on the same level as Zhou Dongdong. Hey, it's a plane, Zhu Huntang said without raising his head. He rubbed his calves in pure white stockings, kicked off his bear-like and sheep-shaped slippers, and climbed to the desk with some difficulty. She then glanced at Lu Chang'an and laughed. There is uncontrollable disappointment hidden in your expression. Have you ever imagined that I would be painting something Mongolian sweat medicine, Mona Lisa's masterpiece? Stupid, everyone has their own areas that they are not good at, even me, it is impossible. Before Zhu Huntang finished speaking, Lu Chang'an took him down from the desk, pinned him on his legs and gave him a beating. He wasn't very angry either, but the traditional way of educating children is to hit them whenever there is something wrong, and it won't break them anyway. Zhu Huntang's aircraft spray painting design was aborted just after it started. Customized aircraft painting is actually not a high-end consumption. Some fans have customized it for male stars who stole the country, but they are looking for airlines, just like looking for bus companies to contract car body route advertising, and the cost may not be as high as that of prosperous routes. Car body advertising is expensive. Zhu Huntang is his own private jet. He can paint it how he wants, as long as it doesn't cause public disgust and discomfort at a public airport, or cause bad influence. According to what Li Hongfang said, painting countless sheep on airplanes creates the effect of visual pollution, which is a bad influence and must be stopped. You hit me today, so I won't go to school in the afternoon, Zhu Huntang yelled at the top of his lungs. Generally speaking, at this time, you have the privilege of being willful. When Zhu Huntang was in Taiwan, he often took the opportunity to talk to Grandma Zheng. Acting like a spoiled child is always beneficial, and any request will be met. Lu Chang'an didn't bother to pay attention to her. He was not the kind of person who gave up halfway. Although Zhu Huntang has repeatedly frustrated him, Lu Chang'an has a long way to go on the road to taming sheep, so how can he give up casually? Discipline is still necessary. To deal with naughty truant lambs, if they are really disobedient, put a collar on them. Does Zhou Dongdong still have to go to school after being beaten? Zhu Huntang tried to find examples of people with the same disease to prove the rationality of his request. Zhou Dongdong never felt that she could not go to school if she was beaten. If she didn't go to school after being beaten, she would only get a second beating. Lu Chang'an asked Zhu Huntang to recognize the facts. Zhu Huntang forgot his own situation for a moment and was full of sympathy for the child Zhou Dongdong. What's more, resisting going to school was only something that happened before Zhou Dongdong went to elementary school. After she found out that going to elementary school could not be changed, she accepted the reality and no longer resisted like you. Lu Chang'an thought of looking at Zhou Dongdong this morning. When Dong Dunchao's back was turned, he felt like he had been beaten hard by reality, just like those kids who thought they would earn millions a year as soon as they graduated. After working around for a few years, they discovered that a monthly salary of over 10,000 yuan was pretty good. Huh? Am I carrying fish? Or fish balls? Why should I carry fish and fish balls? Do you want to take me to eat hot pot? Zhu Huntang frowned. I don't like fish balls. As for fish, I only eat very few kinds of freshwater fish and sea fish, and I don't eat whales and dolphins. Lu Chang'an looked at her coldly. You can understand the word negative in bearing the corner of stubborn resistance as the meaning of carrying, but don't you know that bearing the corner of stubborn resistance has nothing to do with fish and fish balls? Zhu Huntang is often truly illiterate, but he can also pretend to deliberately misinterpret Lu Chang'an's words to change the topic. When he saw her eyes turning around in her sockets, he knew that she did it on purpose. As for whales and dolphins, which are mammals and neither freshwater nor sea fish, he didn't bother to, forget it, She lacked common sense, so Lu Chang'an patiently told her that common whales and dolphins are cetacean aquatic mammals, and dolphins are whales. Chatting with Zhu Huntang, he attracted her attention, took her into the car, and then ordered the driver to rush to Orange Garden Community. Since dolphins are whales, then dolphins will bite off the heads of small fishes and insert them. Will whales do the same? If it is a big whale, wouldn't it need to use sharks or the like to do it? Once I was in the Atlantic Ocean while fishing, I saw a headless shark. Maybe it was a whale that killed it. Zhu Huntang reached out and pinched his chin, showing a serious expression on his face. This means that he has no serious knowledge at all and has too much strange knowledge. Lu Chang'an remembered that Zhu Huntang had told him about sheep brothels and the like. Su Mei left Zhu Huntang to him. Maybe she didn't really care about how Lu Chang'an disciplined her or what achievements he could make in teaching her, but she simply couldn't stand her, right? So should I sympathize with Su Mei for being tortured by Zhu Huntang all these years, or should I be annoyed that Zhu Huntang has become like this under Su Mei's discipline? Thank you all for your generous tips and requests. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 961. Lu Chang'an didn't want to talk to Zhu Huntang about such a natural and vivid topic. This was probably similar to how Zhou Shuling felt when she heard Zhou Dongdong talk about whether her mother had fought with brother Chang'an. As for Zhu Huntang's question, Lu Chang'an can actually answer it. He has witnessed or participated in various biological behaviors. Dolphins have a relatively high IQ among cetaceans, and generally speaking, the higher the IQ, the better they can do things. For example, among the cats and dogs that everyone is familiar with, the brain capacity of dogs is more than twice that of cats. Dogs have an average of 600 million nerve cells in the cerebral cortex, while cats have only half of it. Therefore, it is easier for dogs to communicate. The memory and decision-making ability of a smart dog are equivalent to that of a 6 or 7-year-old human child equals Zhou Dongdong. The smarter and stronger the decision-making ability, the more troublesome it is. The same is true for dolphins. Other whales are not as smart as it, so dolphins will bite off the heads of small fishes and make the bodies of small fishes into cups to vent their desires. Other cetaceans don't know that yet. Zhu Huntang also underestimated the size of large whales. Some of them stand upright and are as high as 11 stories. Think about standing under an 11-story building. This building says it wants to have sex with you. Negative contact is such a terrifying thing. It is normal for the sting of desire of a large whale to exceed 3 meters, and the genetic material production ball is equivalent to the weight of a normal woman, not a fairy. One bloom will deliver 70 or 80 kilograms of reproductive material, which is enough to hit a human body, causing death or serious injury to humans. To sum up, Zhu Huntang's question has the answer, but Lu Chang'an will not continue to discuss the answer with Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang has a strong thirst for knowledge about these things. Can we take advantage of the situation to help her develop a positive learning attitude towards the most interesting, and magical biology? Dream on. Lu Chang'an clearly realized this. Brother Lu, I suddenly understand why you chose women like buildings 1 and 2 of Bailong Center. Zhu Huntang was still holding her chin, but she had already made her own inferences and conclusions after thinking about it. Lu Chang'an looked at her with an unkind expression. In the long struggle, Lu Chang'an's eyes alone were no longer enough to deter Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang looked at him indifferently. He had been beaten just now, and the injury was not serious. He did not spit. The water healed her injuries, so now Zhu Huntang's deep pain did not prevent her from provoking Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an originally didn't know what she was referring to by building 1 and 2 of Bailong Center, but considering the context of talking about large creatures such as whales, she should be referring to Qin Yanan and Nuan and Professor Lu, who are extremely tall. A woman who makes her look up to. This is the principle of biological matching. Dolphins use small fish, and whales use sharks. Brother Lu, you are tall, and you must also need long strips of women like Qinyan and An Nuan to tolerate you. You have always rejected Bai Fen, isn't it? Because you don't like her, and it's not that you know nothing about the power of bears, but that you're afraid of spoiling her. Zhu Huntang sneered, clearly realizing the truth that Bai Hui was never able to get what he wanted. Lu Chang'an took a deep breath, but still couldn't hold it back. The car door was pulled down by him, and the umbrella inside the door was broken and stuck in the front. Fortunately, no safety accident occurred, and the entire car door was still in his hand. Zhu Huntang was shocked. She originally wanted to ask whether the author of Journey to the West had the same worries as Lu Chang'an, so he was inspired to create the golden cudgel, which is coveted by men of all ages. Baby. Ignoring the question for the time being, Zhu Huntang carefully and vigilantly approached the intact car door on the other side and kicked Lu Chang'an's thigh to keep him at a safe distance to prevent Mimi from dying suddenly. The car stopped, and the entire convoy responded. They pulled over and stood by. The driver was the first to get out of the car to check the situation. The people in black almost flew and dodged, forming a human protective wall near the main car. This car was blessed with black technology. It was able to resist the attack of RPG rockets, but the door was completely separated from the body of the car. Someone must have wanted to assassinate Miss Takezan, who is of extremely high status even though she is useless. Dozens of men in black surrounded the car, and those on the periphery were looking around, nervously contacting communications, and immediately notifying the helicopter to come and be on standby. Miss Third, are you injured? The driver asked quickly, watching Lu Chang'an let go and lower the heavy door. I'm fine. It's a small problem. Please let everyone off guard. Zhu Huntang put down his feet and said. The driver breathed a sigh of relief. It was said that the third lady often made Mr. Lu so angry that he jumped over the wall. It turned out to be true. As Zhu Huntang's driver, she is naturally one of the most trusted core figures in the security team around her. She has been strengthened in all aspects of her body. When chatting with her colleagues, she also talked about Lu Chang'an who could take care of them all. Everyone speculated that Lu Chang'an must be much stronger than the S-class Transformers. The car door seemed to have been removed by him with one hand, which is enough to prove this. He did not doubt that Lu Chang'an was going to harm Zhu Huntang. If there was such a possibility, the third lady would have exuded the smell of roasted mutton. The driver stepped back and gestured for the backup car to come over. Lu Chang'an did not let Zhu Huntang get in the car again, but held her hand and walked to the orange garden. It was not far anyway. Today she was beaten and scolded, and no matter how much she was beaten, she couldn't do it in public. As a punishment for her nonsense, she was just allowed to walk over. After a short adjustment, Zhu Huntang relied on his strong psychological quality and was no longer afraid of Lu Chang'an. She had also seen him become so angry that his body was twisted and deformed, he stopped being a good person, his arms turned into chicken claws, and he tore apart the door of her bank vault level skirt guard fresh keeping room. Now it's just a car door. Maybe his brute force will deform the car body structure, leaving a safety hazard. Fortunately, there is an identical spare car, and there have been no safety problems recently. So Zhu Huntang followed Lu Chang'an quietly without any swagger or arrogance. There were many people watching the excitement and even following him. Zhu Huntang also had to pay attention to his image and maintain the demeanor of a young lady. Why are you so grumpy? After walking for a while, Lu Chang'an still didn't say a word, which made Zhu Huntang feel a little uncomfortable. She was usually a quiet and beautiful girl, but she couldn't stay quiet around Lu Chang'an. She always had endless topics to talk to him about, even if it was nonsense. I also want to see his answer and reaction. After ignoring Zhu Huntang for a while, she felt itchy, and moved from maintaining a distance of 2 meters to sit next to him. Anyway, the bad old man's anger comes and goes quickly. After beating Zhu Huntang, he will treat her injuries. As Zhu Huntang summed up, she will not learn the lesson at all. There is a saying that says that the only lesson humans learn from history is that humans never learn lessons. Human beings are like this, and so should me. Zhu Huntang was punished by Lu Chang'an, but he resolutely refused to learn his lesson. After being beaten this time, he would dare to do it next time. You always feel that when you first met me, I was much better than you are now. Why aren't you like this? Where was your indifferent heart at the beginning, when you regarded fairies as nothing? Zhu Huntang continued to analyze. Yes, concern leads to chaos, there must be something wrong with your current mentality, but this problem is not a problem, I quite like it, so don't fix it. Lu Chang'an then glanced sideways at Zhu Huntang. But, based on my experience watching TV series, your change in attitude towards me is like the male protagonist in an idol drama or a romantic drama. When he starts to care about the heroine, he starts to be easily aroused by the heroine's behavior. It means that love is about to begin, as the saying goes, torturing your wife feels good for a while, but chasing her to the crematorium. Shut up. Of course, this is just an analogy, I use it to illustrate a truth. You are the bad old man, and I am the fairy sheep, the controller of the universe. There is no way between us. It's just that you and my mother get together, and I am as a stepdaughter, you can enjoy the pleasure of abusing a daughter for a while and chase her to the crematorium. If you are madly abusing me now, it will be difficult for you to get my gentle and considerate care like a little cotton padded jacket in the future. Zhu Huntang finished summing up, and at the same time hoped that he could also understand Dan Dan's mood. When Dan Dan faced his unfilial son, it was so similar to when he faced Bimi. Haha, little cotton padded jacket. You are just one of those little cotton padded jackets with holes and leaking cotton wool and soaked in ice water. Your body was so weak that you died on the spot because of your consideration. She actually had the nerve to say that she would be as gentle and considerate as a little cotton padded jacket. Care. Lu Chang'an laughed out loud in this mood. Then you say I design a hole in the wall low skirt dotted with white cloud-like cotton. It's called a leaky cotton padded jacket. What do you think? Zhu Huntang found the inspiration and burst out laughing. I am indeed a creative and talented designer. Bloody stuff. Speaking of design, I actually don't necessarily want to use a private jet to show off my status. I plan to customize a bleeded-looking airship and let it float on the roof of the Bailong Center, giving people a sense of bleeding suppressing the world. The feeling. Zhu Huntang looked up at the sky. The vastness of the sky goes so well with the bleeding sound. Lu Chang'an imagined the scene. By then, Juncha would definitely have an internet celebrity landmark, and it would even give people the feeling that the city was controlled by me. The tallest building in Juncha, the tallest building in the world. Zhu Huntang took out her mobile phone. Customizing an airship was not something that could be done in a short while, but she wanted to see such a scene as soon as possible. She wanted to make a super large balloon to play with first. It was easy to make. Seeing Zhu Huntang start to make a call, Lu Chang'an didn't want to hear what she said, so he also took out his phone and saw the message Li Hongfang sent him. It turned out that Li Hongfang wanted to pay attention to what Lu Chang'an did this morning, and after browsing and searching on social media, he discovered the latest developments. The murder of Fui, a vegetable company, was discovered immediately after their serious employees went to work. After all, Lu Chang'an only asked him to take away the clay pots and snakeskin bags that were clean. As for the blood stains left at the scene, they were not dealt with. He allowed the car to avoid the surveillance of the wealthy vegetable company, but the Minotaur's killing was completely exposed to surveillance. The server where the surveillance video is stored is in Yu Chao's general manager's office, and he has not disposed of it. After the serious employees called the police immediately sealed off the scene. In order to avoid outside interference in the investigation and solving the case and cause panic, they asked those with knowledge not to leak the details of the case. However, someone still released the news. After the employees called the police, the storage hard drive was taken away by the police before they had time to look at it or did not realize that they needed to look at the surveillance camera. The news about the Minotaur eradicating evil did not leak out. Lu Chang'an responded to Li Hongfang's message and told him that he did not destroy the surveillance video intentionally. Currently, there are a large number of strange beasts in Juncha. The alien beasts and Japanese people hook up and cooperate extensively. Since the contact between Japanese and alien beasts has reached this level, it is absolutely impossible for people in China to say that they have no understanding of the existence of alien beasts and have no contact plan. When the local police in Juncha find that a case goes beyond the normal scope, they will naturally report it or be asked to hand over the case. In short, as long as the relevant departments know about the existence of the alien beast, the blame will be taken by the alien beast and it has nothing to do with Lu Chang'an. The strange beasts in Juncha are generally quite honest, but they can be beaten if they can. They are more dormant than honest. After they have been dormant for many years, they have formed their own intricate power radiation. The most important thing is that their numbers have increased and they have spread to various fields in society. When necessary, they can mobilize widely to create a strong influence, enough to make human society pay attention to their demands. Will they still be honest? Wild beasts are put into zoos because humans have made iron cages and walls, not because they are willing to go in. The animals in the circus are tamed because of the whips in the hands of the trainers. Without these tools to suppress them, humans are just their food. Lu Chang'an didn't deliberately deal with them, but it would be nice to have the opportunity to cause them some trouble. However, even dormant alien beasts are not so easy to deal with. Maybe someone will come to Lu Chang'an and ask him to help with the alien beasts, and he is also willing. When the time comes, he will use the reason for the murder of Fui a vegetable company to legitimately torture the alien beasts and ask them to hand over the Minotaur. Lu Chang'an was sending a message when he suddenly felt a dull bump on his back. It turned out that Zhu Huntang had already finished sending the message and was teasing him again. After walking so far, my WeChat steps must be number 1 today. Zhu Huntang felt that he had crossed mountains, rivers, and seas and passed through seas of people. If he kept walking, the little fairy's heels would be as smooth and delicate as peeled eggs. If the calluses are worn out, then she is a little bit imperfect. Zhu Huntang clung to his shoulders, trying to climb up on his back with jumps, but her jumping ability was really bad. Each jump could only be about 10 centimeters, and she was not as tall as Lu Chang'an. She wanted to use him as a mount. No chance. Your WeChat step count ranking is not even comparable to Shang Guandandan, Lu Chang'an said with certainty. As long as Shang Guandandan is not walking out with Lu Chang'an, she can still wander slowly for a distance and only wander back when she feels tired. Home rest. When he was with Lu Chang'an, Shang Guandandan would frequently turn his head and look at him after walking about 100 meters from the community, hoping that he would realize that the Queen Mother was tired and wanted to crawl on her back and lie down. Lu Chang'an wanted to punish Zhu Huntang for letting her walk. Of course, he couldn't carry her on his back, so Zhu Huntang kept running and jumping behind him, and walked into the Orange Garden community unknowingly. Before he came, he talked to An Nuan on the phone and asked about Professor Liu's class today. An Nuan was quite satisfied that her boyfriend should go through her first when looking for his mother, so she left Professor Liu at home, who was about to go out for a walk. In case everyone doesn't know, it's necessary to say that this person named An Nuan is Lu Chang'an's girlfriend. There are orange trees and orange cats in the Orange Garden community. Zhu Huntang followed Qin Yanan to the school before school started last year. He had met An Nuan and Lu Yuang nearby. Zhu Huntang still had some impressions of this encounter. There is no overpopulation of orange cats here. College students always have free time to do whatever they want. A stray cat sterilization organization frequently captures nearby stray cats for sterilization. However, the orange cats who make a living in the school are not short of food. A stray cat sterilization organization rounder than one. The orange cats squinted their eyes to bask in the warm morning sun, turning a blind eye to Zhu Huntang, who had commanded the entire Nanshan Mountain, and Lu Chang'an, who was approaching the South Pole. This community is similar to the scene in the old TV series I watched in China. The houses are not high and there is plenty of greenery. It is more like a place where people live than those newly built commercial communities, Zhu Huntang said with satisfaction. The little fairy is going to live there. She is haunted by densely wooded areas, and she is still bitter about her mother's unauthorized modification of the design and rejection of her plan to plant a forest park in the house. If there is a 4-story building, what's the problem with using one floor to plant trees? In order to show their authority and control over their children, adults always make inexplicable and unreasonable vetoes. This is like a place where people live. Is your place where sheep live? Lu Chang'an actually likes this kind of environment. There is a more natural atmosphere. There is no obvious separation between the road and the green belt. Grass, leaves and branches are climbing on the road, and there is no clear distinction. There are scattered fallen leaves, which make the sound of footsteps break. My place is where fairies live. I am an immortal, you and the girl, the fairy, Zhu Huntang emphasized. Recently, I have been obsessed with my own identity, and my original identity as a fairy has lost its sense of existence. This is not okay. You must never forget your original intention and remember that you will always be a fairy. I have learned pinyin. Lu Chang'an nodded. Zhu Huntang has many books with pinyin marked. It's not that she is illiterate, but that she is from Taiwan, where they use Zhuyin. Zhu Huntang was proud. There is nothing that fairies can't do. It's just a matter of whether they are willing to learn. As long as they think about it, even if the Copernican conjecture is presented to them, they can be solved with a little effort in studying and researching. When he arrived at the door, Lu Chang'an saw a newly installed video access control, so he pressed the call button. As a result, the door opened directly, and An Nuan opened the door. My mother saw an advertisement on TV shopping. It installed this thing. It is said that she can use it on the mobile app. Hey, Zhu Huntang, An Nuan saw her boyfriend and muttered with a smile, and then saw Zhu Huntang. Moved out from behind Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang nodded. Even though he and Bai Hui often gossiped about An Nuan behind his back, as long as the girls didn't get angry with each other when they met, they were all friends. What's more, Zhu Huntang also led An Nuan and Hans Hizzy around. Going to the mall has greatly increased the superficial enthusiasm when getting along. Ah, please come in. An Nuan quickly stepped aside. If her boyfriend usually came to the door, An Nuan would open the door and stand at the door to say a few words or rub him against her for a while before letting him in. Didn't I say that I have something to do with Professor Lu? It's her business. Lu Chang'an walked in and pointed at Zhu Huntang, who looked like a child visiting with an adult. Can this be considered my business? It's obviously you who are looking for trouble, Zhu Huntang retorted. An Nuan calmly observed the small movements and facial expressions of Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an when they were talking, and gave Lu Chang'an his special slippers, bright red love slippers, and gave Zhu Huntang new plaid slippers for guests. After all, she is the daughter of a wealthy family. When she comes to visit her humble abode, she is very happy. She is given a pair of new slippers as a deserved treatment. It's not like An Nuan hasn't heard some rumors about Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang in school. Both of them are well-known figures. There will always be people with ulterior motives who spread such gossip to An Nuan intentionally or unintentionally. Just like paparazzi chasing gossip, popularity and traffic can be monetized. Many people spread gossip because it is beneficial. For example, if there is a relationship problem between Lu Chang'an and An Nuan, they can take advantage of it. While An Nuan is paying attention, she must also be careful to discern the motives of others making trouble in front of her. Some of the more interesting gossip is that Lu Chang'an appears to be an orphaned native of Juncha, but in fact he is the son of a family living at the bottom of the family. The Zhu family has rare things to live in and has been paying attention to him. Zhu Huntang is even related to him by blood, and is probably a member of the family. Half-brothers and sisters. You must know that on mainland university campuses, everyone has basically never come into contact with any wealthy families, and the wealth or power is only 2 or 3 generations. These rich and powerful people are indeed superior to others in terms of actual social status, but everyone does not have the psychological perception of being inferior to others. I know, I just feel curious when I come into contact with it. Zhu Huntang is not from the mainland, and her appearance has completely satisfied everyone's imagination and curiosity about a real wealthy family. Lu Chang'an, who has a good relationship with her, will naturally get involved and tell him the various stories everyone has seen in movies and TV series. Cover your body. En Nuan sounded interesting. This kind of gossip was better than the rumors linking him to those cha-cha. Cha-cha is cha-cha, and Anyuan is not targeting anyone. Because Zhu Huntang is not the heroine of scandals and gossips, but only plays a guest role in the story of the grievances and hatreds of wealthy families, En Nuan has never had any objection to Zhu Huntang. After Zhu Huntang was scolded as a bitch by fellow students, I still found this young lady down to earth and interesting. En Nuan, I came to your house to play today. Next time you go to Bailong Center to play, you can also go to where I live. After Zhu Huntang looked around, he didn't say that your house is not as big as my bathroom. Taking advantage of the opportunity to show off his Chinese proficiency, this is called coming and not reciprocating. Brother Lu, right. To you. En Nuan couldn't help but laugh out loud. She always had a calm boyfriend, but she didn't have a good tone when facing Zhu Huntang, and she felt particularly irritable. Still a little helpless, this person is actually his college alumnus. For those who don't know, just looking at Zhu Huntang's level, they must think that Hunan University is a pheasant university. Zhu Huntang played well with him. En Nuan remembered that the last time he went to the auto show and comic exhibition, Lu Chang'an made a special trip to beat Zhu Huntang. En Nuan did not doubt that he was just talking. Lu Chang'an meant what he said when doing things. I will scold you when I say I am scolding you, and I will hit you if I want to hit you. There is no northeastern characteristic of whistling, whining, and spitting but not taking action. During the Chinese New Year, En Nuan was traveling in the northeast. I saw the local scene of all talk but no practice several times. I thought it was a characteristic of the northeast. In fact, it is like this in most areas. Now everyone has the consciousness of losing to being hospitalized and winning to going to jail. Can you make a noise? Try to solve the problem without touching anything. What happened today? We originally planned to go to the morning screening of a movie. That movie only had a 2D version in the morning. The 3D version was too dark to watch, En Nuan said. Zhu Huntang needs a traditional cultural knowledge teacher. See if your mother is interested. Lu Chang'an took En Nuan's hand and replied, it depends on when you are free. I will accompany you to watch this movie. I won't either if you like to watch the 3D version. In fact, as long as you adjust your eye structure, you can achieve the naked eye 3D effect. Okay. En Nuan came over and hugged Lu Chang'an's neck. Lu Chang'an lowered his head and hugged En Nuan's slender waist. Zhu Huntang was suddenly angry. En Nuan wanted to hug his neck, so he lowered his head so that she could hug him. Today, Zhu Huntang was jumping behind him, but he was unwilling to bend down like this so that Zhu Huntang could jump up and wait for her to lie behind him. The back, isn't it also the same as holding the neck? It would be great if I was in the same state as me. I could sneak under his crotch with a single leap, and use my head to head his weak point. At this moment, with his warm and fragrant soft jade in my arms, my imagination must have changed. Only when she hits the headbutt can she remember it and not forget it. 3 consecutive days of big chapters and various requests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Siahua. Chapter 962. Zhu Huntang has played some games. Some of the characters in them have the ability to transform. They can freely switch forms and match skills, and their output and escape are very powerful. They are simply projections of themselves in the game. The problem now is that the virtual Bime universe is still being tested. The person Zhu Huntang stands in An Nuan's home is his real self, not a projection. She could attack Lu Chang'an, but forget about escaping. Mai was alone and in the enemy's position. In addition to Lu Chang'an, a bad old man who had forgotten about sex, there was also An Nuan, a dragon-spirited potfly. Meng, a creature that most people don't know exists, is a bug that feeds on the body fluids of other animals. The most common ones are gadflies. In rural fields, Meng are buzzing around buffaloes. The bug is the gadfly. The dragon spirit pothooligan is, of course, an insect that feeds on dragon body fluids. This kind of insect is very rare and can only be seen around super life forms like Lu Chang'an. The other dragon spirit pothooligan is naturally Qinyanan. He often bullies Zhu Huntang, which shows how bad this creature is. Baifen is also a dragon spirit pothooligan, but currently it is only in the larval stage. Its small mouth is too tender and cannot suck the body fluids of the super life form, so it does not pose any threat to Zhu Huntang and will be played by Zhu Huntang. En Nuan has been smoking for a long time, and she is no longer an ordinary fly. If she sucks Zhu Huntang will not be able to bear it. So after some intense psychological activity, Zhu Huntang decided to stand still. Mai is very good at analyzing the situation and does not act recklessly at any time. It doesn't matter if she plays all kinds of nonsense in front of Lu Chang'an, but the others are not Lu Chang'an, and she wants Zhu Huntang to play wildly with them, but she is not willing to do so. We are not very familiar with each other. If Qinyanan or Bai Hui were hugging Lu Chang'an here, Zhu Huntang would have squeezed in between them and pushed them away. Seeing Zhu Huntang holding her hands in front of her chest, like a sulking child when others don't take her to play, En Nuan let go of Lu Chang'an with a little embarrassment and reached out to hold Zhu Huntang. Miss, after Zhi returns to Zonghai, I was walking around the city center and noticed that that tall building was also called Beilong Center. Do they all belong to your family? Zhu Huntang nodded. To be precise, it's mine. There is still a big difference between me and our family. Many commercial real estate investment projects in the mainland are under my name. En Nuan knew something about it. She had watched TV series about wealthy families. The assets of a wealthy family were owned or managed by the heirs in the future, but the assets of the heirs were not necessarily owned by the wealthy family. Hans Hizzi is quite interesting. Her figure and appearance are a bit like a white fennel. Zhu Huntang looked at En Nuan. It seemed that En Nuan, like herself, liked to find chubby girls as close friends. No, En Nuan Qi firmly disagreed. Hans Hizzi's friendship was like that of an iron buddy who was bitten and chased away by dogs together. They were as hard as diamonds. They were different from those papery ones that could be broken with a poke. They were completely fake. Different. Zhu Huntang talks about the appearance, but En Nuan talks about the core, which is not the same thing. By the way, show me that little skirt of yours later. Oh, 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 that bad Lu Chang'an designed it for you. Zhu Huntang became interested. She rarely envied other people's material possessions, but En Nuan's little skirt was absolutely unique, and the designer was Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an also gave Bai Hui a design draft. He disliked Zhu Huntang's poor academic performance and refused to give her equal treatment. This was the pain in Zhu Huntang's heart. Okay, En Nuan happily shook Zhu Huntang's hand and had no objection to Zhu Huntang calling her boyfriend terrible Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an makes people feel bad most of the time except in front of En Nuan. En Nuan also sees it this way and is happy to see it like this. Who would want the girls around their boyfriend to think that he is nice, warm, considerate, and trustworthy? Her mother felt that Lu Chang'an was very nice, warm, considerate, and trustworthy, which always made An Nuan worried about her. Let's talk about business first. Seeing that Zhu Huntang and An Nuan had a common topic, Lu Chang'an was a little concerned. Zhu Huntang's talent for leading people astray was not ordinary. Bai Hui was originally a normal little girl, but she was influenced by Zhu Huntang. After instilling many bad thoughts, she even dared to repeatedly commit violence against Lu Chang'an. The power of a bear is not violence. What is violence? Lu Yuwang came out of the bedroom and sighed slightly when she heard An Nuan say that Lu Chang'an would come to see her if she had something to do. Men are always particularly concerned about what they can't get. This is the so-called white moonlight in the sky and a cinnabar mole in their hearts. In his current life, his name is Lu Chang'an, but after all, he was once Lu Jianxi. Lu Jianxi could not forget Lu Yuwang and wished for her. Even after becoming Lu Chang'an, he still used Lu Yuwang as a reference when looking for a girlfriend. She didn't know if he really had something to do when he came to her today, or if he was just looking for trouble. Lu Yuwang could understand the man's thoughts, but couldn't respond. As a woman, she was a little frightened by this feeling, but as a mother, she was very sensible and did not mind his dual identity. Supporting his relationship with An Nuan was the limit of what she could do, and it was enough. Be open-minded and respectful to your daughter. Come here. Lu Yuwang glanced at Lu Chang'an lightly, then fell on Zhu Huntang, showing a smile. Miss Zhu is also here. It seems that what Chang'an said is related to you. Yeah. He thinks I need a more professional teacher to teach me knowledge about history and culture. Zhu Huntang said disapprovingly. Actually, I think communication is more appropriate. I am also a relatively experienced history enthusiast. Lu Yuwang looked at Zhu Huntang for a few times. She actually didn't have much contact with Zhu Huntang, but through the villa password door incident, she knew that Zhu Huntang, like Lu Yuwang, was astute and very good at calculating people's hearts. Woman. This is how a rich and wealthy daughter should be, and only an ignorant novelist would write that kind of character of a silly eldest lady who comes from a wealthy family. You're right, let's communicate. Lu Yuwang smiled slightly. She was originally disgusted with Zhu Huntang's donation to enroll in school, but now that they have had some in-depth contact and secret exchanges between the two, this kind of antipathy naturally disappeared along with the generated favor. Lu Yuwang didn't know that Zhu Huntang was a senior history buff, but Zhu Huntang was really good at drinking. Everyone got very drunk that night, and she seemed to be the only one who was fine in the end. Lu Chang'an did not discredit Zhu Huntang. Anyway, this little sheep fan is so confident that even if you expose her countless common-sense mistakes in person, she will not change her wrong perceptions. It's like this. Her mother entrusted me with tutoring before, but the effect was not good. Considering that professional matters still need to be done by professionals, Professor Lu is our most famous expert in the field of traditional culture at Hunan University. I will give my advice to her mother on behalf of her mother. You formally send an invitation, hoping that you can teach her a class to make up for her shortcomings in traditional culture knowledge. The remuneration will be based on your lectures and training outside, but you only need to attend 2 classes a day. Lu Chang'an is quite familiar with the income of professors. Professor Lu Jianxi, who has national talent titles, special allowances, scientific research project funds and subsidies, etc., belongs to the top income among professors. 20 or 30 years ago, his income was higher than now. Professor Lu is tall. Professor Lu Jianxi later established an education fund. Last year, he paid a bonus of 200,000 yuan to a senior high school student from the high school affiliated to Hunan University who acted bravely. He is very wealthy. Professor Lu is a professor of liberal arts. He is severely involuntarily involved and lives a rough life most of the time. However, Professor Lu is a special case. His lectures are very popular and famous. He also often participates in some knowledge variety shows. He is a treasure of Hunan University. The treatment is naturally not low. According to the training management measures for central and state agencies issued 2 years ago, half-day lecture fees for academicians and nationally renowned experts generally do not exceed RMB 3,000 after tax. The price is really not high. He is an academician. You must know that those online writers who are not the best can write 3,000 words an hour for more than 3,000 yuan. The academician's class is not much more valuable than this. If you have time, go online to look for relevant information and listen to academicians' lectures. Isn't that better than reading online novels? Professor Liu, who is invited to give lectures at companies, programs, and events, is not subject to such regulations, so the price is of course much higher. However, this kind of outing to visit acupuncture points often consumes a lot of time and energy. Now I only need to give Zhu Huntang 2 lessons. It is simple, who wouldn't want to do it? Lu Yuwang showed a reserved smile and said politely, "Don't bother me. I'll give Miss Zhu a course schedule. This semester I have a course on traditional cultural knowledge. It's an elective course. Come and listen if you have nothing to do." Lu Yuwang said this, of course knowing that Zhu Huntang, a student who can be called the shame of Hunan University, would not be willing to attend classes according to Lu Yuwang's elective course schedule. She would not even follow the rules and follow her own course schedule. Can't do it. The elective courses related to traditional cultural knowledge at the university actually take into account the 9-year compulsory education the students have received, as well as the relevant knowledge content at the high school level. In other words, it requires a little foundation, but what about her? There is no foundation. She knows it's all self-edited by her hearsay, distorted understanding. Lu Chang'an needs to let teacher Lu know what kind of student she wants to teach. Zhu Huntang was dissatisfied, but was too lazy to argue and sneered, hoping that one day Professor Lu would really become her teacher, and then conquer the other party with his erudition and insights. I understand, you want me to teach students in accordance with their aptitude. Lu Yuwang sat down and nodded. Her skirt bifurcated in the front, and when she habitually crossed her legs, the hem of the skirt slipped down from the lower edge of her smooth and delicate thighs, exposing her entire calf and a small section of her thigh. The woman's warm and moist fragrance emanated, and Lu Yu looked at her eyes. She pinched the hem of her skirt with one finger to cover it up, so as not to make people think that she was showing off the girls too thinly. After all, their legs are always relatively thin and lack the fullness filled with fat. The class will be held in Zhu Huntang's converted factory villa. It's not far from our biology college and the orangery. It's very convenient. Lu Chang'an knew that Lu Yuwang had agreed, and he didn't expect that he wouldn't need to spend a lot of time. Persuade. It seems that after Professor Lu bought the car, she really needed to increase revenue. She would not cut back on expenses anyway. Zhu Huntang showed a helpless expression, but she was secretly happy. With Professor Lu in class, the content of her class would be more repetitive than that of the bad old man, so the number of times he would torture her would be reduced. In the eyes of the old man, he thought that Professor Lu would probably be a being like Yan Qingcheng, who would torture me as planned with him, but in fact Professor Lu had no way of carrying out Lu Chang'an's request like Yan Qingcheng did. Firstly, I have N and Lu Yuwang, and secondly, there is a video of Professor Lu being covered in mucus in the other fields. I think she would not want to leak it in order to maintain her elegant image. This is something Zhu Huntang can use. A counterattack at critical moments. There is another big difference between Professor Lu and Yan Qingcheng. Yan Qingcheng has almost no other pursuits or hobbies except attending classes and studying. The fewer desires people have, the harder it is to deal with them. Professor Lu is that kind of delicate woman. A delicate woman is a nice word to say, but isn't it actually just about having insatiable desires? People with many desires are easily tempted, controlled, and exploited. Professor Lu especially likes to appreciate some luxurious things, such as wine, bags, jewelry, etc. In this regard, Zhu Huntang is a god with the power of the domain. Yan Qingcheng came to teach Zhu Huntang, and there was almost no way to distort Yan Qingcheng's sense of responsibility. No matter what Zhu Huntang tried, Yan Qingcheng remained unmoved. She just attended class anyway. When Professor Lu comes to class, all Zhu Huntang needs to do is place a bottle of Romani Lonzi, which costs around 2,000, next to the desk. Professor Lu will automatically be attracted to his attention, chatting and drinking red wine for 2 classes. Time passed quickly. He already had an idea in mind, but he didn't panic. The expression on Zhu Huntang's face became increasingly angry. Only in this way could the old man not become suspicious. He had no idea that he had been played between the forehooves of BAA. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 963. Zhu Huntang felt more and more like a person, that is the primary school student Zhou Dongdong. She and Zhou Dongdong have the same problem, and neither of them is very willing to go to school, but the pressure around them forcing them to go to school is simply suffocating. They all have a mother who always tries to deal with her, and her mother has an unclear relationship with the bad old man. Lu Chang'an only drove Dongdong to school in the morning, and brought Zhu Huntang to the teacher at noon. He and Dongdong completely fell into his clutches, and were thrown into the ocean of knowledge and drowned. After talking about the business, Zhu Huntang was invited into An Nuan's room to admire the skirt named Song Shigi designed by Lu Chang'an himself. Zhu Huntang looked at the layout of An Nuan's room and found that the bed was just an ordinary bed, not widened or reinforced. In other words, when the old man and An Nuan had sex, they were not very energetic, otherwise the bed would be destroyed. It made various creaking noises, which then affected Professor Lu in the other room. If it affects Professor Lu, a woman who considers herself to be reserved and intellectual, her way of expression should be to help An Nuan strengthen the bed, solve the problem and give an implicit reminder at the same time. The devil was hidden in the details, and Bimi found it out. Zhu Huntang thought and analyzed it casually, and then saw An Nuan lift up her skirt as if offering a treasure. The real thing is more beautiful than the photo. Zhu Huntang is the kind of boss who is respectfully called MRS in the low circle, with absolute authority. She can even affect the sales and popularity of some low skirts. Styles that were originally no one cared about will become highly sought after she wears them. Therefore, some brand manufacturers are trying to contact Zhu Huntang through Beifan. They could only find Baihui. Although Zhu Huntang was wandering around as long as she was not grounded, if they wanted to find her for business cooperation, even AP and Baby, the 2 major manufacturers in the field of low skirts, would not be able to get enough of her. Now Zhu Huntang's eyes are shining when she looks at this skirt, but she also knows that even if she takes the skirt and makes it a replica, she won't be able to achieve the same effect and feeling. The skirt is not gorgeous, but is characterized by exquisite workmanship. It is simply the top handmade art. It exudes the charm of traditional culture condensed into essence. Just like the peerless treasure in National Treasure, it has been refined in the long river of time. With time as the outer covering of its soul, it shines brightly. Damn old man, Zhu Huntang couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to curse through gritted teeth. One day, I took control of the Zhu Fenglai sword sect, so she kicked him out of the position of the sect leader and became her full-time tailor. She beat him with a whip every day. He screamed and kept making clothes for the new sect master. What? An Nuan didn't know what Zhu Huntang was scolding, but felt Zhu Huntang's jealousy with a little pride. It feels very fulfilling to make such a rich young lady jealous. What is more interesting about Zhu Huntang than others is that she expresses her emotions directly without hiding them. She obviously likes her so much that she can't wait to leave An Nuan. He wanted to steal things from his hands, kill people and steal goods, but his face was calm and peaceful, and the ears were quiet. This skirt makes me want to study hard. I wonder if Lu Chang'an will give me a dress if I move up a rank. Zhu Huntang felt a little impatient and even wanted to improve his academic performance. He has a hard mouth and a hard heart. It's not that easy to impress him. Just move up a rank. That's too easy. I don't think he will agree, of course, and Nuan doesn't want her boyfriend to marry another woman. The child has designed a skirt, even for a girl like Zhu Huntang, who makes Nuan feel no threat. But paradoxically, Nuan wanted to compare it with others to see if the dress her boyfriend designed for her was the most special, and whether the dress he designed for others would be so thoughtful and unique. No, it's not simple. Zhu Huntang waved his hand seriously. There is a gap of several dozen points between me and the second to last student in the grade in every subject. Nuan was stunned for a moment. She is Professor Liu's daughter. She grew up in an environment with a strong learning atmosphere like Hunan University. Her grades from elementary school to high school were among the best, and the schools she attended were among the best in the county. Nuan has never had much contact with a scumbag like Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang once thought that no one with an annual family income of 10 million was considered poor, and Nuan would also think that if you have a brain, wouldn't it be easy to get 80 or 90 points in the exam? If you can't do that, you probably have no brains. Nuan couldn't help but glance at the area above Zhu Huntang's neck. What was that? Actually, well, I think, probably. Nuan is a well-educated and polite girl after all. She did not make fun of Zhu Huntang unbridled, and said with difficulty, as the eldest lady of the Zhu family, what is the direction of family training? You should pay more attention to some characteristics of the heir, and academic performance is the least important. After all, those who will work for you in the future need excellent results to prove to you that they are qualified. Zhu Huntang smiled. Nuan's words came from the bottom of her heart. She didn't need to care. What other people think of her will not affect whether Zhu Huntang can be the heir, let alone the person with the best grades. Only those with the best grades will have a chance. Work for her. It's a bit too difficult for me to improve my academic performance. This is what it means when people are poor. Sometimes Zhu Huntang gave up realistically, but his bright black eyes were turning around, and he still had to use his intelligence and wisdom to surrender. For example, he should first become the sect leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect. Manpower is sometimes poor, and Nuan was stunned for a moment, and then realized what Zhu Huntang wanted to say. Although she didn't use the word this way, she didn't even try hard. What does it mean that manpower is sometimes poor? Manpower is sometimes poor. Well, this word is an ancient word, right? People in ancient times could only farm and fight, and they all need strength. Without strength, they can't do anything. So manpower is sometimes poor, which means that the manpower is used up. You will be very poor at this time and can't do anything. Zhu Huntang was talking, and this passage reminded her of Shangguan Dandan. Zhu Huntang stopped talking to Nuan about study-related topics, took the skirt from her hands, spread it on the bed, and carefully appreciated the fabric. Why does it feel similar to some ancient scrolls collected by my mother? Nuan stood behind Zhu Huntang and checked her phone. She and Zhu Huntang had been in for a while, which meant that Lu Chang'an and Professor Lu had been alone in the living room for a while. However, the door is not closed and we are in the living room. Strictly speaking, we are not alone together, right? Nuan didn't mind much and just listened to the conversation in the living room. Lu Chang'an and Professor Lu just continued to talk about the lessons they gave to Zhu Huntang. Both parties seemed to intend to talk calmly and with a slight distance. This made Nuan a little strange. Did something happen between them? Create such a tacit understanding? After finalizing the matter of Lu Yuwang giving lessons to Zhu Huntang, Professor Lu wanted to get into the mood as quickly as possible, or to be familiar with the student Zhu Huntang. After Zhu Huntang finished admiring Nuan's skirt, She immediately took Zhu Huntang to Bai to teach. Bai is not a typo, it's just that Zhu Huntang named her villa Bai, just like the place where An Nuan's family lives is called Orange Garden, they are both names. Zhu Huntang has a villa called Bai. Is there any problem? Not at all. Lu Yuwang and Zhu Huntang went to Bai, leaving only Lu Chang'an and An Nuan at home. Today, both of them have classes in the afternoon. There is still some time in the morning, and we can have a meal together at noon. The young lovers haven't had much time to get together recently, especially since An Nuan's recent training has been closed. Lu Chang'an wants to see the scene of his long legs jumping around. Rather difficult. When Zhu Huntang was still here just now, it felt like 3 adults with a child. Lu Chang'an, An Nuan, Lu Yuwang were almost the same height, and Zhu Huntang looked like a minor. In fact, this is not Zhu Huntang's problem. Even in the north, where heights are generally taller than in the south, Zhu Huntang, who is 1.63 meters tall at night and 1.65 meters tall in the morning, is not considered short among girls. The only reason is that Lu Chang'an and others are too tall, which makes Zhu Huntang look like a child. Lu Chang'an closed the door, turned around and said to An Nuan, "Did you pick up your mother's car so soon?" He saw that Lu Yuwang had already driven a new car. Many people looked down on the entry-level Porsche, thinking that it was vanity, impractical, and lacking in quality. Actually, it's your business if you don't like it, and it's their business if others are willing to buy it. Keep your own opinions. You don't have to let others have the same selection criteria as you. You have to let others agree with you. Most of the time, it's because you are actually some people with a guilty conscience are not so confident. Yes, my mother is really a bit strange. Whatever she does, it often goes smoothly without any reason. Some people have to wait for months or even more than a year to recommend popular models. Hers is also a popular model. Just now, if you can coordinate it well, you can find the only one. An Nuan was a little envious. Everyone is fate. In terms of luck, Professor Lu really has never lost to anyone. An Nuan even suspected that if she had the habit of buying lottery tickets and persisted, she might have won the $1 billion jackpot long ago. You have better luck than her, Lu Chang'an said disapprovingly. Where is it? You met me, but your mother was not so lucky. Lu Chang'an explained the reason, which was very sufficient. An Nuan laughed out loud. What Lu Chang'an said made sense, but was not very accurate. In fact, Professor Lu also met you, right? You guys even dated online, but An Nuan discovered it in time and strangled the dangerous signs. But An Nuan doesn't have many knots. After all, she is her own mother, which is still very different from how she feels about other cha-cha. That's all in the past. An Nuan doesn't settle all old accounts. A woman must understand which old accounts can be settled and which ones cannot. Now we are a family, and we will see each other every day in the future. If I bring up old scores from time to time, wouldn't it remind them that they are resurrected? It might even make him think that he should have continued dating online instead of looking for An Nuan to see how virtuous and elegant Professor Lu is now and how messy An Nuan is. Then it would be over. It's Christmas in 3 days, long live it. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 964. Between lovers, there are always some things that cannot be overcome, some are more, some are less. The smart ones hold on to the idea of settling old scores, while the stupid ones or have ulterior motives, talk about it from time to time, until the other party can't bear it anymore, kick each other out of bed and get out. An Nuan has no ulterior motives in trying to anger Lu Chang'an and make him break up first, nor is he stupid. The online chat between Lu Chang'an and Professor Lu is not about making friends, but when it is about it, it is online dating. It all depends on An Nuan's mood and needs. Thinking about it this way, I feel like I have some initiative. My mother doesn't know who will get the advantage in the end. An Nuan was a little worried about this problem. When she was a child, she saw some uncles always buying delicious food for her and giving her things. And Nuan thought they were really nice people. Later, when I grew up, I realized that they were really nice people, lustful. It's normal to be horny, but it's abnormal not to be horny, especially if you're not even good like Professor Liu. He's either a master with a simple heart, or a great person who is obsessed with career, hobbies, professional interests, etc., and some are just messing around. Stick. Some people are mean-mouthed, so they would reply, "Don't let the wealth go to outsiders." Lu Chang'an was a noble man by nature, so of course he wouldn't provoke his girlfriend like this. He calmly nodded and said it had nothing to do with him. And Nuan was satisfied with his attitude, so she decided to reward her boyfriend. "It's almost time for lunch. I'm cooking today, and I'll go downstairs to feed you." After saying that, En Nuan walked into the bedroom and took off her coat. She seemed to be afraid that her expensive and delicate-looking coat would be contaminated with oily smoke and she would have to change clothes before going to the kitchen. Lu Chang'an was a little confused. En Nuan's tone was calm and casual, but according to Lu Chang'an's understanding of her, she definitely knew that making noodles could be related to erotic activities, and she would use it to tease her if she had the chance. Lu Chang'an. She actually calmly let go of teasing her boyfriend like this? Lu Chang'an doesn't trust En Nuan's cooking skills, and he's not the kind of guy who insists on eating even if his girlfriend makes dark dishes. But if she just makes noodles, it won't be so unpalatable. Lu Chang'an can always eat them. Soon En Nuan walked out of the bedroom. She actually changed into the little cook's apron in the bedroom. It's just that the little cook's apron is pink in color, revealing the design of the entire waist and ribs, and the texture of lace is not a serious apron at all. En Nuan walked to the kitchen without looking at Lu Chang'an. Only then did Lu Chang'an see her back. It would have been a pity not to cup her back. It was as smooth as jade, as slippery as soap soaked in water, and as if the lid had just been torn off. The ice cream was smooth and soft as if it was licked by the beautiful girl's wet and warm tongue. Her two legs, as thin and tall as peeled bamboo shoots, wearing heeled slippers, further highlight her usual advantages. Why does Lu Chang'an need to go to the gym to see the bouncing volleyball? He is now a boyfriend who enjoys perfect treatment. How could Lu Chang'an still not understand the connotation of what she said about cooking? This dirty beautiful girl always drives so calmly, which makes Lu Chang'an sigh. With such a girlfriend, what else can he ask for in a husband? Lu Chang'an quickly got up and went to the kitchen to exchange cooking skills with En Nuan. At noon, after Lu Chang'an and En Nuan got to know each other's cooking skills, they did housework for a while, tidying up the kitchen and bedroom, opening windows for ventilation, cleaning trash cans, etc. After finally getting the house back to the point where even the single dog couldn't smell it, En Nuan took a super big scarf and wrapped it around Lu Chang'an, then wrapped herself in Lu Chang'an's arms and walked out like a conjoined twin. Most people can't walk a few steps like this and stumble easily, but Lu Chang'an has no problem. He presses against En Nuan's back, flexibly uses the twist and strength of his waist and hips to coordinate his limbs to follow En Nuan's pace, like an exoskeleton. Like a robot, not only will it not cause her to fall, but it will also protect her. En Nuan found it interesting. While laughing, she took out her mobile phone to take a video, recording the strange daily life of herself and Lu Chang'an. At this time, a Mercedes-Benz slowly passed by. En Nuan clearly saw in the camera lens of her mobile phone that the driver was Professor Han. He was making a phone call with a serious and thoughtful look on his face. En Nuan and Lu Chang'an were so attractive. Neither of the two people in the spotlight noticed. En Nuan saw a familiar figure on her phone again. She turned around and saw the sneaky Professor Ling. "Aunt Ling, what are you doing?" En Nuan asked strangely. Professor Han's car had just passed by, and Professor Ling was obviously following her husband. "It was Lao Han's car just now, right?" I must have read it correctly. When Professor Ling saw the two juniors, he straightened up and sneered as he looked at the cars but gradually going away. Yes, I wanted to say hello to Professor Han, but he didn't see us, and Nuan nodded. I guess Professor Han was talking on the phone with someone Professor Ling didn't want him to talk to. Lu Chang'an pointed out the truth without nodding. Ah, and Nuan smelled the gossip, but this was Professor Ling's family gossip, so Nuan was a little worried. Last time I went to see that old vixen, do you remember? Professor Ling was indignant, putting his hands on his hips to gather momentum, and was about to raise his voice to complain. What old vixen? Principal Jin's wife, Lu Chang'an reminded. And Nuan glanced at her strange boyfriend, wondering how he could remember these things and analyze the accurate information so quickly. The last time Nuan and Lu Chang'an had a meal in the cafeteria, they met Professor Ling, who was visiting the principal's wife. At that time, Professor Ling had said that there were some ambiguous rumors between his family's old Han and the principal's wife. Then the old vixen in Professor Ling's mouth could only be the principal's wife. And Nuan was surprised that her boyfriend actually remembered such casual little gossip information clearly and seemed deeply impressed. That's her. Professor Ling was still sneering. I asked Han if you wanted to go see the principal's wife. He said he couldn't go, didn't want to go, and didn't dare to go. But when he turned around, he took the old vixen called me, made an excuse and drove out. He doesn't necessarily go to the hospital, maybe it's something else, and Nuan comforted Professor Ling. The relationship between the two families was very good, and many things about Professor Ling's family were kept secret from Lu Yuang and Nuan. Family scandals should not be made public because they were only for outsiders. Professor Ling did not treat Lu Yuang and Nuan as outsiders. And Nuan knew that Professor Ling and Professor Han had actually always had some emotional problems, but in the past, considering their daughter, Hans Hizzy was still in high school, which was a critical period in life, and the couple would hold back their problems not to break out at home. Now that Hans Hizzy is far away at China Sea University, without the lubricant of her children, there will inevitably be more quarrels and discords. Humph. Even if he wasn't going to the hospital, he was still fooling around with some female student, Professor Ling said angrily. When Lu Chang'an heard this, he knew that the relationship between the two professors had broken down. Otherwise, why would he say this about his husband in front of others? Professor Han is one of those professors in universities who is more like an entrepreneur or a businessman. He has his own company, school, and system. He has a lot of resources in society at his disposal, including national subsidies and scientific research project funds. To buy a Porsche, Lu Yuang had to ask his father for 300,000 yuan. Professor Ling's two Mercedes-Benz cars also plan to buy new cars to drive with Lu Yuang's Porsche. Lu Chang'an often comes to Orange Garden, but rarely sees Professor Han. It seems that it is because of the convenience of work. Professor Han has been living in another house at home since last year. Professor Ling lives in Orange Garden, which is more convenient for life and work. Hans Hizzy returns to the county during the winter vacation. Shat, the whole family lives in the orange grove. There are conflicts between husband and wife, and they are often separated. It would be strange if there are no problems. Lu Chang'an sighs and laments, how desirable this ordinary family life is, just like the family dramas that Guan Dandan often watches. Chicken feathers, the scrappy shit is daily and interesting. Of course, just because he feels yearning and interesting doesn't mean that he will actually experience it. He doesn't want to have such a gap between himself and Nuan in the future. Professor Han may be cheating on her now, and Professor Ling is also extremely interested. You may have eaten it secretly by chance. As for whether it is fishy or not, it depends on your diet and living habits. This kind of thing still needs to be verified. Misunderstanding is not good, and Nuan said with concern, Aunt Ling, how about we go with you to take a look? After Professor Ling said a few words, he was not so excited anymore. He looked at Lu Chang'an and said, Chang'an, I know you are not such a person, but I still want to say one thing, men tend to become bad when they become rich. You don't imitate that person named Han in the future. I won't become rich, because I was already quite wealthy, but I just lived a poorer life before, Lu Chang'an said disapprovingly, not to mention getting worse, he just rubbed one this morning. The people in the company are entirely motivated by justice and kindness. How could someone with such a firm heart and the ability to enforce justice turn bad? Listening to him speak, Professor Ling laughed out loud for no reason. Oh, why bother to pay attention to a greasy middle-aged man named Han? The young man in front of him has a beautiful body and an interesting spirit. He feels very comfortable just chatting. On the contrary, when Han was at home, he felt like the air was thin and his chest was tight even when he breathed. What she was dissatisfied with was that she was the winner, but the old vixen finally turned the tables and hooked Han. Many times when people reach middle age, family problems and cheating problems have nothing to do with love and the like. Instead, they are entangled with issues such as the desire to win or lose, whether one's life is worth it, etc., and then the matter is no longer resolved. A visit to the Civil Affairs Bureau can solve the problem. Let's not talk about these nonsense. Chang'an, where is your mother? Professor Ling was about to talk to his best friend. This matter is quite irritating, but everyone likes drinking and scolding men with his best friend. My mother, right, and Nuan felt that Professor Ling was so angry that he lost his temper. It's all the same. Professor Ling did make a slip of the tongue, but it felt like there was nothing wrong with it. She went to work part-time as a private tutor for Zhu Huntang, and Nuan said. Then I'll give her a call and wait until she finishes class. Professor Ling took out his cell phone and dialed a number before walking away. Lu Chang'an looked at Professor Ling, who was looking for Lu Yuang, and suddenly thought of the sentence "3 women in one drama," and couldn't help but frowned. The new episode of Bai Fen has been updated. You can join the group to watch. If you have 12,000 followers currently, you can click on the jump link in the author's words to join. Please try not to join the old group. It is too full and there is rarely room to add people. A new chapter will be uploaded tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 965. The saying 3 women in one drama is actually not quite correct. After all, there is a sheep playing in it. What kind of woman is a sheep? At most it is a female creature. Professor Ling quickly got on the phone with Lu Yuang and arrived at the door of Bai. Lu Yuang and Zhu Huntang did not open the door to pick her up, but sent a message asking her to try to crack the password and enter on her own. This made Professor Ling a little worried, but she believed that such a problem would not be difficult for her, and they would not want to shut her out, which meant that the difficulty of cracking the password should be within the range that she could solve. Professor Ling looked at the password input panel that was completely integrated into the wide doorframe. He wanted to have one for his house in Hedong. However, considering Zhu Huntang's consumption level, Professor Ling felt that this might not be something he could consider. Luxury. Maybe this password door is more expensive than your own house. After all, rich people always like to spend the most money on places where it is not necessary to show their taste and strength. Professor Ling reached out and touched the input panel. Fingerprints were immediately left on the glass-textured panel. She was thinking that this was just like the old upstarts in Europe and the United States who like to use glass products. They cost a lot of money for servants. Only by wiping and cleaning regularly can the bright and beautiful appearance of the Mingjian be maintained. The fingerprints she had just left evaporated and disappeared like water vapor, leaving no trace. The door panel was still clean and beautiful. I really want to install one. Professor Ling was so happy to see that he was groping around on the door. He will ask Zhu Huntang later to find out. If he buys a villa in the future, if his financial conditions permit, he must install this kind of door. I asked you to crack the code. Why are you groping around on the door? Lu Yuwang's voice came from the speaker in the pool next to the door. She was about to test her best friend to see if she was as smart and thoughtful as herself. Who knew that Professor Ling's attention was attracted by this door? As expected, she was as smart as she was. There is a big gap between myself. Only then did Professor Ling come back to his senses and rethink the password. She knew Lu Yuwang very well. Since it was Lu Yuwang who sent the message for her to decipher, it meant that Lu Yuwang knew the password. Lu Yuwang was urging Professor Ling again. It was probably because she was very proud after cracking the crack and wanted to see if her best friend could do it too. It must not be difficult for Lao Liu's weak brain to crack the password. It might be 123,456 that Lu Yuwang often uses. So Professor Ling tapped his round and white fingers one by one and entered the password 123,456. And the double password. 123,456 again. The door opened in response, and Professor Ling looked at Lu Yuwang, who was slightly depressed behind the door, with a smile. Obviously, Lu Yuwang's sense of accomplishment in cracking the code was diluted by Professor Ling's similar success. "Old Lu, have you been drinking?" Professor Ling said, looking at Lu Yuwang's rosy little face. Middle-aged women like to drink some red wine. Firstly, they can beautify their appearance. Secondly, they can look elegant, live a refined life, and be full of a sense of ritual. Zhu Huntang just finished giving me a lesson. No, I just finished giving Zhu Huntang a lesson, and she invited me to drink, Romani Conti. Lu Yuwang felt a little intoxicated, drinking for the first time. Although such a good wine is not so delicious, it is expensive. "Any more?" Professor Ling said in a low voice. "Wine is like a man, good wine is like a good man, and tasteful wine is like a tasteful man. All aspects are worth savoring and make people want to die. Fairy. Women can't resist a man like this, and certainly can't resist a good red wine. Yes, she doesn't drink much, but she has a wine cellar." Lu Yuwang felt that he had drunk too much. This situation seemed a little wrong, but when it happened to Zhu Huntang, he felt that there was no problem. At this time, Zhu Huntang came over from behind. She was holding a square glass in her hand, filled with blood-red wine. She smiled and said to Professor Ling, "Hello, I am Zhu Huntang. I know you, Hans Hizzy. You mother and daughter look so alike, especially your figure and temperament, as if they were carved from the same mold. Hello, I've heard about you for a long time. I'm sorry to bother you for visiting you," Professor Ling also said with a smile. This Zhu Huntang is quite polite and has the temperament of a young lady. He is not at all like the master of Hunan University as rumored. Shame. Let's have a drink together? I have good wines and famous wines from all over the world, Zhu Huntang invited. Professor Ling was very candid. "That's what I meant. I've learned a lot." "What kind of wine are you drinking?" "This is a domestic red wine. My mother said that Zhejiang and Ningdong have the best grapes in the world. We have wineries in both places. We have just started making wine and the quality is average. I have nothing to drink." "Let the winery give you feedback," Zhu Huntang said calmly. In fact, what she drank today was still pineapple beer, just colored with cranberry juice. Professor Ling was not very interested when she heard that the red wine was made in China. This did not mean that she had to worship foreigners. It was just that in the post-cultural colonial era, most people still had the mentality of colonial inferiors and consciously used imported culture and art. Bullshit is considered superior. "However, Miss Zhu, please change your password. I will give you a lesson next time and then crack it." Lu Yuwang was tipsy, but she did not lose her determination to win. She wanted to prove that she was smarter. "Good." Zhu Huntang led Lu Yuang and Professor Ling to visit the wine cellar. There were no servants here, so it was rare that Miss Zhu entertained the guests. In the end, Lu Yuang and Professor Ling not only drank red wine, but also drank some that made them lose their virginity. The powerful alcoholic drink successfully put the two of them on the bed. After saving the videos and photos of the two professors' drunken gaffes, Zhu Huntang yelled "Baa Baa" a few times, took off her elegant white stockings and fairy-like little skirt, and turned into a lamb and ran around the room. Run. To do big things, you must proceed step by step. Professor Ling and Lu Yuang have fallen into Zhu Huntang's hands and will be controlled by her in the future. Over time, people around Lu Chang'an will be directly or indirectly controlled and influenced by Zhu Huntang. At that time, each of them revealed intentionally or unintentionally that Zhu Huntang was the most suitable successor to the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect. They would persuade Lu Chang'an with earnest words that it would be best for him to pass on the position of head of the sect to Zhu Huntang as soon as possible. Even if Lu Chang'an is physically disabled and mentally strong, he is still thinking as a human being, and living in society with human thinking. He cannot be immune to the influence of the surrounding environment. As time goes by, he will unknowingly come up with the idea that this bad old man must beg Zhu Huntang to be his heir. Even if he becomes her horse and lets her ride on his neck to dominate him, he will not hesitate. Baa. Baa, the sheep lay on its side on the ground, with its forehooves stretched out and pulling up and down, bleating and laughing proudly. What a happy little lamb! The sunshine in the afternoon is a sign that the warm spring days are beginning to change to the hot summer days. Lu Chang'an and An Nuan walked on the campus, comfortable and comfortable. After exchanging cooking skills, we then taught cooking skills in the kitchen. After lunch, we walked to school together, looking at the moist and beautiful girl beside us, recalling her voice, her expression, and her beauty. We enjoyed it so much. When it comes to professors, it's easy to think of the poem about the immortal touching my head and tying my hair to receive immortality. Some people write it as received, and some people write it as conferred. In fact, there is nothing wrong with it. It's just Li Bai's Jinglu and Li in the prefect Liangzai it is the former who receives, while in Sushi's poems it is the latter who gives. Lu Chang'an and An Nuan were chatting. Most people liked Li Bai's poems, and some felt that Li Bai's poems were too suitable for trolling. Even the titles of his poems had to be written with ellipsis, otherwise some people would think it was trolling. I doubt Professor Lu can handle Zhu Huntang, and Nuan knew her mother very well. This is a middle-aged woman favored by God. She is very lucky and has been going smoothly for a long time. When she is walking on the road and sees that she is about to step on a banana peel and fall down, there will be licking dogs running wildly to lick the banana peel away regardless of the dog's life, and even more people will he quickly lay down on the ground to act as a human cushion to avoid hurting the goddess. Zhu Huntang is another kind of girl favored by gods. Her origin is proof of luck. Her reincarnation skills are basically the best, second, and third in the world. She has been going smoothly for a long time, but she stepped on a banana peel and fell down while walking on the road. There will be men in black with generous salaries who will eat the banana peels desperately, and some will nervously call for helicopters to be on alert, fearing that this is a shocking assassination plot that will hurt a hair of the eldest lady. In this way, when two people meet together, their luck will cancel each other out. If they each rely on their own abilities, and Nuan suspects that her mother will be played by Zhu Huntang. After all, and Nuan could analyze from some information vaguely revealed by Bai Hui on social media that sometimes Zhu Huntang would act as Bai Hui's dog-headed strategist. People who can be dog-headed strategists may not have much ability, but they are often good at small tricks, and only small tricks are enough to deal with Professor Lu. It's just a class. Yan Qingcheng taught Zhu Huntang, and he was very good. Professor Lu is a real professor, why not be as good as Yan Qingcheng? Lu Chang'an also knew Professor Liu's reputation, professional level, and career experience. There are no black spots, it's just that he's too famous. In the scientific world, he's like Hawking. In this way, everyone can understand Professor Liu's professional image. Let me ask how your class is going, and Nuan sent a message and went out in the morning. It was almost time for class in the afternoon. Her mother seemed to be staying with Zhu Huntang. It didn't look like she was just in class. The message was replied quickly, and it was quite long. Zhu Huntang is very smart and can often draw inferences from other situations. We had many exchanges and had a great time. I plan to continue taking classes in the afternoon. Please help me tell Lu Chang'an that Zhu Huntang will join my class this afternoon. Lu Chang'an also saw the content of the message, with no expression on his face. What are you talking about? And Nuan looked at the content of the message suspiciously. No matter how dedicated my mother is, she won't let Zhu Huntang give up her main class and come to this common sense cram school of hers, right? This is from Zhu Huntang. Seeing her boyfriend's expression, as if he was looking at a mosquito that couldn't prick the skin and kept poking at it, and Nuan was really worried that he would slap Zhu Huntang to death. In order to skip class, Zhu Huntang took my mother's mobile phone and sent such a message, and Nuan shook her head. It turned out that Zhu Huntang had a head on his neck, and it was filled with skills related to truancy. No, she's not that simple. Lu Chang'an knew that as long as it was not about study, Zhu Huntang was really cunning in other aspects, and could often draw inferences from one instance. This message of hers is deliberately showing a flaw. First, I want to continue taking Professor Liu's class because I hope that I will see that this message was sent by her. Annan didn't know that her boyfriend and Miss Zuda had countless battles of wits over going to school and skipping classes. She also knew that I could definitely tell that it was her who posted it, so her purpose was not simply to skip class, but to attract me to see what she was up to, and then the real trap, she said. Lu Chang'an sneered. Then don't go, and Nuan frowned. She wasn't worried about her mother, she was used to not worrying. Growing up, she had seen her mother as if there was a god protecting her, and all evils were dispersed. I'm going. There is an absolute strength gap between me and her. I'll go and beat her up. That's it? No need to worry about the trap, she said. Lu Chang'an sighed. You go first, let's go to class, and I'll stop by to see your mother and Professor Ling. Okay, you should be gentler. Zhu Huntang is just a little naughty, and I feel like he has a good heart. And Nuan had an indescribable feeling that it would be a bit awkward for a guy like Zhu Huntang to be her friend. It's quite appropriate to have the mentality of being like an elder and watching the juniors misbehave. I skinned her to make a wool coat. Hearing these words from her boyfriend, with his hands in his pockets, his back still looking extremely handsome, but his tone was murderous, and Nuan couldn't help but want to laugh. If he was going to hit Bai Fen, and Nuan wouldn't be able to laugh. When Zhu Huntang is beaten, he will probably cry loudly and roll on the ground. When Bai Fen is beaten, he will probably make a snap bang sound. Just like she was beaten at noon today. Lu Chang'an came to a place lined with green trees, surrounded by clear water, where the singing of birds and the fragrance of flowers make people forget the hustle and bustle of the city. Now it is completely impossible to tell that this was once an abandoned factory of a school-run enterprise. The rotors of a super-large helicopter stretched out on the roof platform, and several sci-fi looking drones with small laser weapons were hovering around. Lu Chang'an picked up stone them. These drones were not crushed to pieces without help, but they did not fight back. They actually followed the same style as Zhu Huntang. After scanning Lu Chang'an, they turned around and ran away without a trace. 1 2 3 4 5 6 For some unknown reason, when entering this password, Lu Chang'an felt that his thoughts were unclear. The secondary password that needs to increase the maximum number of people who can enter is still 123,456. Entering this password once seems to increase people's blood pressure. Lu Chang'an walked in, but there was no movement. After looking around, he took a few steps forward and saw the tatami that Lu Yuwang was stuck on last time. This time there are some lush green plants around the tatami, just like the rough movie and TV drama sets from the 1970s and 1980s. Lu Chang'an walked over and saw Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling lying naked, hugging each other and falling asleep drunk. A sheep lurking behind the plant rushed out very quickly and kicked Lu Chang'an on the back. Lu Chang'an remained motionless, looking back at the sheep coldly. Oops, last time at Nanshan Ranch, the collision between sheep and sheep could obviously knock him to the ground. Zhu Huntang was so shocked that he turned around and wanted to run away. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 966. Zhu Huntang is erudite and has a deep understanding of history, culture, traditional literature, mythology, etc. She has seen many stories about fairies descending to earth, having their clothes stolen, and having to marry mortals, such as Zhu Beiji and the Jade Emperor. Fei just peeked at Bai Niangzi and Xiao Qing, but Bai Niangzi and Xiao Qing were not taking a bath, but shedding their skin, and they were naked. From then on, the two sides forged a grudge. In short, when a woman takes a shower and her clothes are taken away, interesting stories will happen. Zhu Huntang acted according to the opportunity today and wanted to do such a story. Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang were the same. They lost their temper when they were drunk. They talked about taking sexy private photos and almost letting Lu Chang'an see the photos. Lu Yuwang thought Lu Chang'an didn't see it, but Professor Ling found that Lu Chang'an just had high emotional intelligence. He saw it and pretended not to see it. Professor Ling saw Zhu Huntang's camera and started playing around, asking Zhu Huntang to take private photos of them. The two women were twisting and posing randomly on the bed, and they fell asleep within a few pictures. Zhu Huntang originally wanted to move them into the swimming pool, and then fill them with flowers and plants next to the swimming pool to create a scene where fairies had their clothes stolen. As long as he seduced Lu Chang'an to the swimming pool, he would rush out and take their clothes away, and then kick him into the swimming pool with his hoof. That was the plan, but that was not the case. Zhu Huntang is very strong only when he turns into a sheep, and can even pull a small trailer filled with sheep dung balls. Now ask her to carry two drunk corpses to the swimming pool, and she won't even try. Fortunately, they were already lying on the tatami, and they were able to make a plan to lure Lu Chang'an over. According to Zhu Huntang's thinking and analysis, even Dandan said that Lu Chang'an was lewd and slutty. If he kicked him in this situation, even if he couldn't kick him down, he should fall down and roll between the white bodies of the two professors. Go away. Sure enough, people's calculations are not as good as those of heaven. She is a little fairy, but under the suppression of position levels, she is still closer to humans. And Lu Chang'an's various abilities are the same as those of heaven, so his calculations went wrong. It's not your own abilities, brain power, intelligence, logic, analysis, etc. that are the problem. Let me go. Damn old man. Lu Chang'an reached out and grabbed one of the sheep's hind legs and lifted it up. The sheep was twisting and struggling almost convulsively, its two front hooves were clawing in the air, and its other hind leg was also kicking and kicking. Unfortunately, it could only make the whole body sway around, and the chicken wrapped around its buttocks was also the pink plastic bag made a snapping sound, making it worried that it would be lost. Zhu Huntang didn't put a plastic bag when she first turned into a sheep, because there were only 3 women here, and she was calculating that Lu Chang'an would come, so she showed the reserve and pride of traditional women and a simple sense of shame, so she put a plastic bag on herself. If I don't take care of you, you will really become lawless. Lu Chang'an didn't even look at Professor Lu and Professor Ling, and left with Zhu Huntang. Professor Lu is nothing to look at. Anyway, he is just like Qin Yanan and Nuan and others. He is just the most beautiful body in the world, and Lu Chang'an does not care about it. Professor Ling is even less attractive. Apart from big breasts, fat hips, and a soft waist, she has no other advantages. If she wasn't an intellectual woman with the gentle temperament of a traditional woman, her face wouldn't be that beautiful. What did I do? I just kicked you, you can kick me too. Zhu Huntang gave up struggling, like a dead sheep that had just been killed and bled, its 3 hooves naturally drooped. Lu Chang'an ignored her and carried her to the kitchen. After all, it is a factory building, and with 3 floors, the area is only a little smaller than the top 4 floors of Bailong Center. It took Lu Chang'an a while to find a large Chinese-style dining kitchen. This kitchen has never been used. After all, Zhu Huntang has long-term set the maximum number of people who can enter it to only 2 people. The equipment is very complete. According to Lu Chang'an's understanding, the more professional the chef and the larger the kitchen, the more various pots and the larger they are. The largest one can be used to cook sheep. Lu Chang'an was holding the sheep in one hand and managing it with the other, heating up the water in a large pot. What are you going to do? Zhu Huntang asked, looking at the floor, a little wary. She knew that Lu Chang'an was boiling water, but it was not like he had never been boiled in Nanshan. Zhu Huntang couldn't help but feel a little angry. This bad old man is definitely the worst stepfather in the world. There must be beasts in this world that are inhumane and torture and kill their stepchildren. He is definitely one of them. He actually put his own stepdaughter in a pot to boil. Lu Chang'an did not answer and directly threw Zhu Huntang into the pot. Ah! Zhu Huntang exclaimed and stood up. He shook his body and found that it was warm. Is this my Grandma Zheng's favorite pot bath? There was a wooden board at the bottom of the pot. Zhu Huntang stood on the wooden board and walked for 2 steps. He felt very comfortable, but when he heard the roar of the fire under the pot, he felt a little panicked. Lu Chang'an sneered, immediately put the lid on the pot, and put Zhu Huntang into the water to cook. Readers with children, please do not imitate. Hey! Zhu Huntang screamed. The water hadn't boiled yet and the temperature was bearable, but who could bear it? The water was heating up and the fire was burning underneath. Close the lid. Zhu Huntang kicked his hoofs wildly, rolled in the pot, jumped and bucked, but in the end he had no choice but to find that the person holding the lid of the pot was not some other weakling, but Lu Chang'an, who had the power of ancient times. Sure enough, the most ruthless imperial family. The 2nd generation of the Qin dynasty died because Qin Shi Huang was cruel and unkind. His son, Fu Su, a great scholar of the world, was barbecued. It was known in history as burning books and entrapping scholars. More than 10 years later, the Han dynasty came into being and inherited this ruthless tradition. Emperor Lu Chang'an was deposed by Dan Dan within a few days of his reign. Now he wants to depose Zhu Huntang, the successor to the Kyushu Fenglai sword section. Do you know that you are wrong? Lu Chang'an listened to Zhu Huntang kicking the pot lid and sighed. Firstly, he lamented that even if her kitchen was not used, the kitchen supplies were of absolute top quality. Secondly, he lamented that she was just a weak sheep after all. Sure enough, she can't do anything except transform into a sheep, but if she inherits a little more of Lu Chang'an's skills, even the hull of an aircraft carrier will be kicked to pieces by her. I know I was wrong, I was wrong. You are my biological father, okay, please let me out. Zhu Huntang was horrified to find that the water around him had boiled and was rolling gurglingly. The steam was so hot that she couldn't even open her eyes. She felt that the whole sheep was swollen, and she was also spinning in the pot as she was hit by the rolling water. This is probably what the oil pan in hell is like. What did you call me? Lu Chang'an asked calmly. My dear father, you are my dear father, Zhu Huntang roared and begged for mercy. That's about the same. Lu Chang'an opened the lid of the pot, and Zhu Huntang made some progress. Instead of fainting due to panic triggering the stress response, he became a fainting sheep being quietly cooked, but jumped out of the pot with all his feet. Come out. Zhu Huntang jumped to the ground, bouncing around like a spring, and then trembled wildly. Water flowed all over the plastic bag. It scratched its hooves and ran out of the kitchen in a flash. Lu Chang'an watched Zhu Huntang run away and had no intention of actually cooking her. Her physical fitness is still good and she can withstand high temperatures. She herself said that a gentleman does not stand in water and fire, which means staying away from places where boiling water is boiling. At that time, she even asked Lu Chang'an to swear at her because of her lack of knowledge and skills. Now it seems that even she doesn't know that she doesn't need to be afraid of boiling water. But when she calms down, she will probably find that she is not afraid of boiling water, and then she will feel that she has great abilities, and she will be so proud that she might go to Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan to show off her abilities. Surprisingly, she actually called him her biological father. Because it was in such a scene and there was no sign of reverence or intimacy, Lu Chang'an did not feel any comfort from this. He just shook his head and sighed, and started to clean up the kitchen again. An important place like the kitchen is so messy. By the time he cleaned up the kitchen and walked to the tatami surrounded by groves and mushrooms, full of fairy tale style, Zhu Huntang had changed back to his human form, standing there with wet hair, sobbing. There were low plants surrounding the tatami, and Lu Chang'an couldn't see the mature and beautiful bodies of the two women, so he didn't need to avoid it and walked directly over. Today's grudge, I have written down today's grudge. Zhu Huntang held a paper and pen, but didn't write anything down. It would be nice to just keep this kind of thing in mind. Of course, it is not in the daily records. She took paper and pen are just to show that I hold a grudge very seriously. You still hold a grudge? You have done this to the two professors. Aren't you afraid that they will hold a grudge? Lu Chang'an said angrily. Who said it was me who made them do this? It was them who were drunk and shouted that they wanted to record their youthful and beautiful bodies. It is none of my business. Zhu Huntang put his hands on his hips angrily. Then how do you explain why you kicked me in the back? Zhu Huntang was not so confident anymore. He held his little skirt with both hands and flapped it from side to side. He was already being cooked anyway and didn't want to explain to him that he was innocent. When will they wake up? Lu Chang'an didn't need her explanation, and Zhu Huntang didn't know what was going on in his head. He always spared no effort to mess up Lu Chang'an's private life. This is completely different from her mother. If Su Mei knew that Zhu Huntang always wanted Lu Chang'an to get more women, Zhu Huntang probably wouldn't even be qualified to inherit Su Mei's huabi. Let's go to the evening. I told them that drinking those drinks will cause fragmentation, but they said that they have never been a prostitute in their lives, and they have never been a dead fish in a bar. They just want to try the feeling of fragmentation in a safe environment. Then they also drank a lot. Zhu Huntang frowned. What does it mean to be a dead fish in a bar? You don't need to know, Lu Chang'an said in a stiff tone. Professor Ling and Professor Lu are not afraid of teaching the children badly. Thinking of this, Lu Chang'an immediately glanced at Zhu Huntang, and sure enough, her eyes were moving around again. She didn't know? That's weird. When it comes to serious common sense and knowledge, it is normal for her not to know it. She knows a lot about the irregular, evil, and messy things. Let's go to class. I was cooked by you today and I still have to go to class. Even if you are made into a roasted whole lamb, I will still take you to class. Damn old man. Didn't you just call me daddy? Bah, you still want to be my biological father, you tyrant. In ancient times, Qin Shi Huang burned books to seduce Confucian scholars, but now there is a deposed emperor of Han who boils water and boils sheep. Haha, we can still fight. Captain, what do you think of me organizing a sheep and sheep team? Lu Chang'an knocked on Zhu Huntang's forehead, rushed her to a place with a hair dryer to dry her hair, and then hurried to class. Happy New Year to everyone. Double your monthly votes. Please give me monthly votes.